There's no room for you on this trip, Jade. Figure it out yourself. My father's words echoed through the international terminal as he walked toward the gate with his new wife and her 3 kids, leaving me standing alone with my useless ticket. At 15, I learned that abandonment comes with a boarding pass, but what happened when I called the mother he said was dead changed everything. Hi everyone, my name is Jade. I'm 24 now. But this story starts when I was 15, standing in LaGuardia Airport, watching my father choose his new family over his old one. The vacation had been planned for months. Turks and Caicos, 7 days at an all-inclusive resort. Dad had promised it would be our chance to bond, to bridge the gap that had grown since the divorce. I packed carefully, saved my babysitting money for new swimsuits, told all my friends about the trip. What he hadn't mentioned was that Brittany, his wife of 6 months, would be coming. Or that her 3 kids, Tyler, Madison, and little Emma, would fill every seat he'd booked. There must be a mistake, I said, checking my boarding pass against the gate agent's screen. I have a ticket. I have a seat. 14B. The agent's smile was sympathetic but firm. I'm sorry, sweetie. That seat's been reassigned. The reservation was changed this morning. I turned to find my father already at the gate, Brittany's manicured hand on his arm. Her children clustered around them like a Christmas card photo I wasn't meant to be in. Dad. I called out, my voice cracking. Dad, there's something wrong with my seat. He walked back slowly, like approaching a problem he'd hoped would solve itself. Listen, Jade. Tyler needs to sit with us. He's got anxiety about flying. The airline made a mistake with the booking. So get another seat. I'll sit in the back, I don't care. There are no more seats. His tone was flat, final. Look, you're smart. You can figure this out. Take an Uber home. We'll do something when I get back. You're leaving me at the airport? My voice rose, drawing stares from other travelers. I'm 15. Brittany appeared beside him, pressing a tissue to her nose. Robert, we need to board. Emma's getting fussy. He pulled out his wallet, extracted $200, and pressed it into my hand. This should cover the Uber and some food. Maybe stay with that friend of yours. What's her name? Keisha. Kendra, I whispered. Her name is Kendra. Right. Look, this isn't ideal, but sometimes we have to be flexible. He was already backing away. We'll talk when I get back. Be mature about this. Mature. The word hit like ice water. I watched them board. Brittany herding her kids, my father carrying Emma's diaper bag, the family unit complete without me. Tyler, the boy who'd taken my seat, turned back once and smirked. The gate agent touched my shoulder gently. Honey, is there someone you can call? I nodded, pulling out my phone with shaking hands. But I wasn't calling Kendra. I was calling a number I'd found hidden in my father's office 6 months ago, written on the back of a business card he'd tucked behind his passport. The number for my mother. The one he'd told me died when I was 3. It rang 4 times before a voice answered, professional, clipped, alive. Evelyn Chambers. Mom. The word felt foreign on my tongue. It's Jade. The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Then, quietly, Jade. My God. Where are you? LaGuardia. Terminal B. Dad left me here. He said you were dead. Another silence, but this one vibrated with something dangerous. I'll be there in 3 hours, she said. Don't move. Don't call him. And Jade? Pack light for warm weather. We're about to have the vacation you deserve. I sat in the airport cafe, spending Dad's guilt money on overpriced hot chocolate and a sandwich I couldn't eat. 3 hours felt like 3 years. I watched families board planes together, watched fathers hold their daughters' hands, watched mothers fuss over their children's carry-ons. When she walked in, I knew her immediately, not from memory. I'd been too young, but from the way she moved, like she owned the air around her. Evelyn Chambers wore a white pantsuit that probably cost more than our mortgage, her dark hair swept into a chignon that defied airport humidity. But it was her eyes that stopped me cold. My eyes, looking back at me with 12 years of banked fury. "My baby," she said, and her voice broke on the words. "My beautiful girl." I stood frozen as she crossed the space between us, her heels clicking on the terrazzo floor like a countdown. She stopped just short of touching me, her hands hovering like she was afraid I'd disappear. "He told me you were dead," I whispered. "I know." Her jaw tightened. "We have a lot to discuss. But first, do you like private jets? Because mine's waiting on the tarmac, and I think Turks and Caicos is lovely this time of year." "You want to take me to the same resort?" "Yes. The presidential suite. I own the property." Her smile was sharp as glass. "Your father doesn't know that, of course. He booked the standard package. We'll be neighbors." That's when I understood. This wasn't just a rescue. This was war. The private jet was like stepping into another universe. Cream leather seats, crystal decanters, a bedroom in the back. As we lifted off, Mom poured herself wine and me sparkling cider, then settled across from me with the look of someone preparing for battle. "I never died, Jade. I left when you were 3, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But your father—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "He was very good at making me look unstable. Very good at documenting my episodes. By the time I realized what he was doing, he'd built a case for full custody." "But you could have fought." "I did fight. I spent everything I had on lawyers. But I was 23, Jade. He was 35 with an established career and a talent for manipulation. The court believed him. Supervised visits only, they said. For your safety." She pulled out a leather folder, thick with documents. Every birthday card returned. Every letter marked deceased, returned to sender. Every attempt to see you blocked. "He didn't just take you from me, he erased me." I flipped through the pages, seeing my name written in increasingly desperate handwriting. Birthday cards for ages 4, 5, 6. Letters asking about first days of school, lost teeth, favorite colors. All of them stamped with brutal efficiency. No such person. "So what changed?" I asked. "Why could I suddenly find your number?" Her smile was winter cold. "I changed. 12 years of rage is excellent motivation. I built a company, sold it, built another. I bought judges' vacation homes, legally, of course. I became someone who couldn't be erased, and I waited for you to be old enough to find me." The business card in his office. I had my assistant drop it during a meeting. I knew he'd keep it. He keeps everything that might be valuable later. I just had to wait for you to be curious enough to look. And if I hadn't called, then I would have waited until you were 18. But something told me Robert would eventually show his true colors. Narcissists always do. We landed in Turks and Caicos as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of justice. The resort sprawled before us, all white sand and infinity pools. Mom's suite was on the top floor, glass walls offering a view of the entire property, including the standard rooms where my father was probably unpacking with his preferred family. "There's something you should know," Mom said as we settled in. "The custody arrangement is still technically in effect. He has full legal custody until you're 18. But," she poured herself champagne, "abandoning a minor in an airport is frowned upon. As is lying about a parent's death. As is emotional abuse documented by security cameras." She opened her laptop, showing me an email thread with timestamps from 3 hours ago. "My lawyer is already filing emergency custody papers. Airport security footage of him leaving you. The amended flight records showing he removed you from the booking. Your ticket stub proving you were supposed to be on that trip. He'll fight back." "With what money?" Her smile widened. "Your father's very leveraged, Jade. The house, the cars, this vacation, all on credit. Brittany doesn't know, of course. She thinks she married successful. But I know every debt, every late payment, every financial corner he's cut. including the fact that your child support payments have been going into an account that's supposed to be for your college, but is mysteriously empty. He stole my college fund. Among other things. But don't worry, I've been making parallel deposits into a trust in your name. You're actually quite wealthy, darling. You just didn't know it. The next morning, I woke to sunshine and the sound of my phone exploding with messages. Dad had discovered I wasn't at Kendra's. His texts evolved from annoyed to angry to panicked. Where are you? This isn't funny, Jade. Answer your phone now. I'm calling the police if you don't respond. I showed them to Mom over breakfast on our private balcony. She sipped her coffee and smiled. Let him panic. The police will be very interested to know why he's reporting you missing when he left you at an airport. When do I tell him where I am? You don't. My lawyer will. She checked her watch. In about an hour, he'll be served with papers. Emergency custody petition, child abandonment charges, and a forensic accounting of your missing college fund. All delivered to his room here, in front of his new family. That's cruel. No, she said quietly. Cruel is telling a 3-year-old her mother is dead. Cruel is leaving a 15-year-old alone in an airport. This is consequences. We spent the morning by the pool, the private one attached to our suite. I tried to relax, but my nerves were shot. Then, at exactly 11 a.m., we heard it, shouting from several floors below. Mom handed me binoculars. 4th floor, 3rd balcony from the left. I felt like a spy, but I looked. There was Dad on his balcony, papers in hand, face purple with rage. Brittany stood behind him, her mouth open in shock. Through the glass doors, I could see Tyler, Madison, and Emma watching cartoons, oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated their vacation. My phone rang. Dad. Answer it, Mom said. On speaker. Where are you? His voice was volcanic. Turks and Caicos, I said calmly. You said to figure it out. I did. You're here? With her? He knew. Of course he knew. That woman is poison, Jade. She's manipulative. She's alive. I cut in. Yeah, I noticed that part. Funny how dead people can afford presidential suites. Get down here right now. We're going home. No. I am your father. Who abandoned me in an airport? Mom's lawyer says that's a felony, by the way. Said the security footage is really clear. The silence stretched, then Brittany's voice, shrill in the background. Robert, what is she talking about? What custody papers? What stolen college fund? I have to go, Dad said quickly. Actually, you don't. Mom called out, loud enough for him to hear. The island's not that big. Nowhere to run. He hung up. We watched from our balcony as the drama unfolded. Brittany stormed out 20 minutes later, dragging her kids toward the lobby. Dad followed, still clutching the legal papers, trying to explain. The other guests pretended not to stare as the perfect family imploded in paradise. I feel bad for the kids, I said. Tyler, Madison, and Emma. They didn't ask for this. Neither did you. Mom reminded me. But you're right. They're innocent. Which is why I've arranged for them to have a wonderful vacation in the kids' club with professional childcare, while their mother figures out who she married. That afternoon, while Dad dealt with lawyers and Brittany dealt with reality, Mom and I finally talked. Really talked. About the years stolen, the lies told, the daughter she'd never stopped fighting for even when the system failed her. I used to dream about you, she said. Every night for the first year. Then every week. Then every birthday. I'd imagine what you looked like, what you loved, who you were becoming. And now. Now I see you're stronger than I ever imagined. You called me Jade. After 12 years of thinking I was dead, you found that number and called. That takes courage I didn't have at your age. Or desperation. Sometimes they're the same thing. That evening, we watched the sunset from our balcony. Below, the resort continued its lazy rhythm. Couples strolling the beach, kids building sandcastles, families having the vacations they dreamed of. He's leaving tomorrow, Mom said, checking her phone. His credit card was declined for the rest of the stay. Brittany's already taken the kids back to their room. Apparently, she's filing for annulment. That was fast. Gold diggers usually are when the gold runs out. I should have felt guilty. Should have felt something for the man who'd raised me, even badly. But all I felt was free. The legal battles took months. Dad fought everything. The custody change, the abandonment charges, the financial investigation. But it's hard to argue with security footage, credit card records, and a paper trail of lies. Mom's lawyers were sharks who smelled blood. They found everything, not just my stolen college fund, but years of tax fraud, hidden debts, and a secret gambling problem that explained where my child support actually went. In the end, I got to choose. The judge, a stern woman who looked like she'd seen everything, asked me directly, "Where do you want to live, Jade?" With my mom, I said, looking at the woman who'd spent 12 years becoming someone impossible to erase. With the parent who fought for me instead of against me. Dad's face crumpled. For a moment, just a moment, he looked like he understood what he'd lost. Then his lawyer whispered something, and his expression hardened again. "She's poisoned you against me," he said. "No," I replied. "You did that yourself." At Turnalby. Now, at 24, I sometimes think about that day at the airport. How different my life would have been if Tyler hadn't needed my seat, if Dad had chosen me instead of convenience, if I'd never found that hidden business card. But mostly, I think about the moment my mother walked into that terminal, power and fury wrapped in white linen, ready to go to war for a daughter she'd never stopped loving. Dad remarried eventually. Another woman with kids who needed a father figure. I heard from Kendra, who heard from someone else, that he tells people I chose money over family, that my mother bought me. But the truth is simpler. I chose the parent who chose me. Mom and I aren't perfect. 12 years is a long time to lose, and we're still learning each other. But we're learning together, building something real on the ashes of his lies. And sometimes, when I fly through LaGuardia, I stop at that cafe in Terminal B. I buy an overpriced hot chocolate and sit in the same spot where my life split in two, where a 15-year-old girl watched her father board a plane without her and learned that family isn't about blood or obligation or proximity. It's about who shows up when you're abandoned at the airport. It's about who answers when you call. It's about who fights for you when the world says you're not worth the effort. My name is Jade Chambers. I took my mother's name the day I turned 18. My father left me at an airport when I was 15, told me to figure it out. So I did. And I've been figuring it out ever since, one flight at a time. With the mother who refused to stay dead and the future he never thought I deserved. Turns out, the best journeys begin with missed flights and found mothers. Who knew abandonment could be a boarding pass to something better?
The laughter started before I even turned off the engine. I sat in my scratched Toyota Corolla, watching my cousin Sophia and her friends through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Vineyard's main house. They were pointing at my car, covering their mouths like teenagers gossiping in a high school cafeteria. Sophia's mother, my Aunt Abigail, shook her head with that familiar look of disappointment I'd seen my entire life. My name is Lara, and I'm 29 years old. I should have been used to this by now. "Oh my God! She actually drove that thing here," Sophia's voice carried across the gravel driveway as I stepped out. She was draped in what looked like a designer rehearsal dinner dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. "Sophia, be nice," my mother Eleanor said weakly from the porch steps, but she didn't look at me when she said it. "I am being nice, Aunt Eleanor. I'm just saying maybe we could have arranged a ride for her. You know, so she didn't have to arrive like this." I grabbed my overnight bag from the back seat. The zipper was broken on one side, held together with a safety pin. Another source of amusement, I was sure. "Lara!" Abigail called out, her voice dripping with false enthusiasm. "We were wondering if you'd gotten lost. Traffic must have been terrible in that vehicle. Actually, it runs great. I said, walking up the stone pathway. Gets amazing gas mileage. Sophia's friends exchanged glances. One of them whispered something that made the others giggle. Well, come in, Abigail continued. We were just discussing the wedding timeline. Sophia's been so organised about everything, haven't you, darling? I had to be, Sophia said, flipping her perfectly styled hair. When you're planning a wedding at this level, you can't just wing it. Every detail matters, she emphasised this level while looking directly at me. The flowers alone cost more than some people spend on their entire wedding, she continued. But Felix insisted we do it right. He said I deserved the best. That's wonderful, I said, setting my bag down in the foyer. The marble floors were so polished I could see my reflection. Where should I put my things? Oh, we've got you set up in the guest house, Abigail said quickly. It's so cosy. Very appropriate, of course, the guest house. While Sophia got the master suite in the main house, I'd be staying in what was essentially a glorified shed with a bed. The guest house is perfect, I said. I prefer the quiet anyway. That's good, Sophia said, because we're having the bachelorette party tonight in the main house. It might get a little loud, but don't worry, we'll try to keep it down after midnight. How considerate. Dinner was served on the terrace overlooking the vineyard. The table was set with crystal glasses and gold-rimmed plates that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I was seated at the far end naturally, while Sophia held court at the head of the table next to her fiancé, Felix. Felix seemed nice enough. He kept trying to include me in the conversation, asking about my work and where I lived. But every time I started to answer, Sophia would interrupt with another wedding detail or inside joke that excluded me entirely. Lara works in accounting, my mother offered during a lull in conversation. Oh, how practical, Abigail said, in that tone that made practical sound like a disease. Someone has to keep track of the numbers, I said. True, Sophia laughed. Though I suppose some people just peak in community college and that's okay too. The table went quiet for a moment. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, but I kept my expression neutral. Actually, I went to law school, I said calmly. Oh, that's right, Sophia said, snapping her fingers. But you didn't finish, did you? What happened with that again? She knew exactly what happened. Everyone at this table knew. I'd had a breakdown during my second year. Panic attacks, insomnia, the whole mess. I dropped out and spent 6 months barely leaving my apartment. I decided it wasn't for me, I said. Well, it's not for everyone, Abigail said with fake sympathy. The pressure can be overwhelming for some people. Under the table, I pulled out my phone and opened my investment app. Just a quick check, while they continued their conversation about Sophia's dress fittings and honeymoon plans. The number on the screen made me smile. £147,830. They could laugh at my clearance dress and my beat-up car all they wanted. But while they'd been focused on appearances, I'd been quietly building something real, something they couldn't see. Something they'd never expect from the family failure sitting at the end of their perfect table. The guest house was exactly what I expected. A converted storage shed with a twin bed and a bathroom the size of a closet. Through the thin walls, I could hear Sophia's bachelorette party in full swing, squealing, music, the clink of champagne glasses. I unpacked my single bag and tried to ignore the noise. Around 2 a.m, it finally died down. The next morning, I was awakened by Sophia's voice right outside my window. I can't believe she actually showed up in that car, she was saying to someone on the phone. It's so embarrassing. What will Felix's family think? I lay still, listening. No, she's staying in the guest house, obviously. Can you imagine her in the main house with all our wedding gifts on display? She'd probably try to return them for cash. Footsteps crunched on gravel as she walked away, still talking. An hour later, Abigail knocked on my door. Lara, dear, we're having brunch on the patio. Family only. Family only. Right. I threw on jeans and a t-shirt and walked to the main house. The patio was set with another elaborate spread. Fresh fruit, pastries, mimosas and crystal flutes. Sophia sat in the centre, wearing a silk robe with bride embroidered on the back. There she is. Sophia said, without looking up from her phone. We were just talking about the prenup. The prenup? My mother asked. Oh, yes, Sophia said, finally putting her phone down. Felix's family insisted. You know how these old money families are about protecting their assets. That's smart, Abigail said. You can never be too careful. Exactly. And I made sure it's written real vague, Sophia said with a smirk. My lawyer knows what he's doing. Felix walked out onto the patio carrying a coffee mug. What are we talking about? Oh, just boring legal stuff, babe, Sophia said, reaching up to kiss his cheek. Nothing you need to worry about. He smiled and sat down next to her. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. Oh, I'm very happy, Sophia said, her eyes glinting. Very, very happy. The conversation moved on to wedding details, the photographer, the band, the menu. I picked at a croissant and stayed quiet. But something about Sophia's comment nagged at me. The way she'd said it, the look on her face. After brunch, I was walking back to the guest house when Sophia's younger sister Francesca caught up with me. Lara, wait up. I turned around. Francesca was 21, still in college, and the only family member who'd ever been decent to me. Hey, Fran, how are you holding up with all this wedding chaos? She looked around nervously, then stepped closer. Can we talk? Privately? Sure. What's going on? It's about Sophia. And some things she's been saying. Francesca bit her lip. You still check the family voicemail group, right? The one Mom set up for emergencies? Sometimes. Why? You should check it. From last night, around 1 a.m. She walked away quickly, leaving me standing there confused. Back in the guest house, I pulled up the family voicemail group on my phone. There were dozens of messages, mostly Abigail coordinating wedding details and my mother asking if anyone needed anything from town. Then I found it. A message from Sophia, timestamp 1:17 a.m. I hit play. Sophia's voice came through the speaker, slurred and giggly, drunk. Hey family, just wanted to say I'm so excited for tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, but you know what I mean. The wedding. I can't wait to be Mrs. Felix Roberts, and I especially can't wait to divorce him and get the beach house. My stomach dropped. The message continued. His money talks, and my lawyer doesn't ask questions. 5 years, maybe less if I play my cards right. Then it's hello Malibu. God, I love being smart. There was giggling in the background, other voices. Sophia, you're recording, someone said. Oh shit. Whatever, it's just family. They know I'm kidding. Sort of. Okay, bye. The message ended. I played it again, and again. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just gold digging. This was premeditated fraud. Sophia was planning to marry Felix, wait out whatever time frame would maximise her payout, then divorce him and take half his assets. And she'd been stupid enough to record herself admitting it. I sat on the narrow bed, staring at my phone. Through the window, I could see Sophia and Felix walking through the vineyard, his arm around her waist. He was pointing out different grape varieties, clearly in love, completely oblivious to what his fiancée really had planned. My phone buzzed with a text from Francesca. Did you listen to it? I texted back. Yes. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? For years I sat quietly while this family mocked me, dismissed me, treated me like a charity case. I'd absorbed their insults and their condescension without fighting back. But this was different. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about Felix, who seemed like a genuinely good person. This was about justice. This was about Sophia finally facing consequences for once in her privileged life. I looked at my phone again, at that damning voicemail. Sophia had always been careless with her words. Today, that carelessness was going to cost her everything. I needed air, and I needed to think. I walked down the gravel path toward the vineyard's main road, my phone clutched in my hand. The voicemail felt like a bomb waiting to explode, and I wasn't sure I was ready to be the one to detonate it. Lara! I turned to see a guy jogging toward me, tall, dark hair, wearing a Sound Solutions DJ t-shirt. It took me a second to place him. Quincy? Quincy Little? Holy shit, it is you! He grinned and pulled me into a hug. I thought that was you at the rehearsal dinner last night, but I wasn't sure. You look great. Thanks. I can't believe you're the wedding DJ. Small world. Tell me about it. When I saw the booking was for a Sofia Ramirez, I wondered if it was your cousin. Then I saw you sitting at the table and knew I was right. He studied my face. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that. I glanced back toward the house. Want you walk with me? I could use the company. Sure, I was just setting up equipment anyway. The bride's got very specific requests for tonight's reception. We started walking down the road together. The morning was crisp, with fog still clinging to the hills around the vineyard. So what have you been up to since high school? Quincy asked. Last I heard, you were going to law school. That didn't work out. I'm in accounting now, freelance stuff mostly. Accounting, huh? That's cool. Steady work. Yeah, it pays the bills. I kicked at the stone on the road. What about you? Always knew you'd end up in music somehow. Started DJing parties in college, built it into a real business. I do a lot of weddings now. Good money, and I get to see people at their happiest, he paused. Usually, anyway. What do you mean? Well, some weddings you can just tell aren't going to last. The couple barely talks to each other, or one of them is clearly more invested than the other. He glanced at me. Speaking of which, your cousin seems intense. That's one word for it. She gave me a 40-minute lecture yesterday about the playlist. Very specific about when to play what songs. When to fade out, when to turn up the volume. Most brides care about the first dance and maybe the bouquet toss. She had opinions about every single transition. We walked in silence for a few minutes. The road curved through a grove of oak trees, and I could hear birds chirping in the branches above us. Can I ask you something? I said finally. Shoot. If you knew someone was about to make a huge mistake, would you try to stop them? Quincy stopped walking and looked at me. Depends on the mistake, and depends on the person. What if it was someone you didn't really know, but they seemed like a good person? And what if stopping them meant exposing something that would hurt a lot of people? Lara, what's going on? I pulled out my phone and stared at the voicemail. If I show you something, can you promise to keep it between us, at least for now? Of course. I hit play on Sophia's drunken message. Quincy's expression changed as he listened, his eyebrows rising higher with each word. When it ended, he let out a low whistle. Holy shit! She actually recorded herself saying that. Drunk dial to the family group chat. Her sister told me to check it. And the groom has no idea. None. You saw him yesterday. He's completely smitten. Quincy ran a hand through his hair. Man, that's rough. Felix seems like a decent guy. I mean, I've only talked to him a few times, but he's been nothing but polite. Even tipped me in advance, which most people don't do. So what would you do if you were me? Honestly, I'd want to tell him, but... He looked back toward the vineyard. That's going to blow up everything. The wedding, the families, all of it. I know. On the other hand, if you don't tell him and he finds out later that you knew... Quincy shook his head. That's going to eat at you forever. We started walking again, slower this time. There's something else, I said. This family has treated me like garbage my entire life. My cousin, my aunt, even my own mother just stands by and lets it happen. They think I'm a failure because I drive an old car and shop at thrift stores. But you're not a failure. No, I'm not. I've actually done pretty well for myself. Better than they know. But they've never bothered to ask about my life or what I've accomplished. They just see what they want to see. Quincy nodded. So this isn't just about helping Felix. This is about them finally facing consequences. Maybe. Is that terrible? I don't think so. I think it's human. He stopped walking and turned to face me. Look, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you this. I've got complete control over the sound system tonight. If you decide you want that message played, I can make it happen. You'd do that? For you? And for Felix? Yeah, I would. He smiled grimly. Besides, your cousin was a real piece of work when she was giving me instructions yesterday. Something about people knowing their place. I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Not just anger, but power. The power to act instead of just enduring. I need to think about this. Take your time. But Lara, whatever you decide, make sure you can live with it. Because once this gets out, there's no taking it back. I know. We walked back toward the vineyard in comfortable silence, but in my head, the wheels were already turning. Sophia had always been careless with her words. Today, that carelessness might finally catch up with her. The rehearsal dinner was held in the vineyard's private dining room. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, and a string quartet playing softly in the corner. I sat at a table near the back, picking at my salmon while watching the happy couple at the head table. Felix kept reaching for Sophia's hand, whispering things that made her laugh. He looked genuinely happy. It made my stomach turn, knowing what I knew. "Excuse me, are you Lara?" I looked up to see a woman in her 40s standing beside my table. She was impeccably dressed in a navy blazer and had the kind of sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Yes, that's me." "I'm Jocelyn, Felix's aunt. May I sit?" "Of course." She settled into the chair across from me, her movements precise and controlled. "I've been wanting to meet you. Felix mentioned you're Sophia's cousin. That's right." "Are you enjoying the festivities?" "They're lovely. Sophia has excellent taste." Her tone was neutral, but something flickered in her expression. "I understand you work in accounting." "Freelance, yes. Mostly small business consulting." "Interesting. I'm an attorney myself. Corporate law, primarily." She sipped her wine. "I actually handle some of Felix's business affairs. That must keep you busy." "It does, especially lately." She set down her glass and looked directly at me. "Can I speak frankly?" "Sure." "I've been concerned about this marriage from the beginning, not because I don't want Felix to be happy, but because something feels off." My pulse quickened. "Off how?" "Sophia's been very involved in the prenup negotiations. More involved than most brides in my experience. She's asked very specific questions about asset division, inheritance laws, that sort of thing. Maybe she's just being practical. Perhaps. But when someone asks about the exact time frame required to maximize a divorce settlement, it raises red flags." I nearly choked on my water. "She asked about that. Among other things, her lawyer has been pushing for very particular language in the agreement. Language that would benefit her significantly if the marriage were to end within a certain time frame." Jocelyn leaned forward slightly. "Felix is a trusting person. Too trusting sometimes. He sees the best in people, which is wonderful, but it can also make him vulnerable." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I think Sophia is planning something, and I think you might know what it is." We stared at each other across the table. The string quartet finished their piece, and applause rippled through the room. "Why would you think I know anything?" I asked carefully. "Because you're family, but you're sitting alone at the back of the room. Because Sophia barely acknowledges you exist, but you're watching her like a hawk. And because Francesca mentioned you might have some concerns about the wedding. Francesca talked to you. She's worried about her sister. She thinks Sophia is making a mistake, but she doesn't know how to stop it." Jocelyn's voice dropped. She also mentioned something about a voicemail. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Lara, I'm not the enemy here. If Sophia is planning to hurt Felix, I need to know, not just as his aunt, but as his attorney." I looked around the room. Sophia was standing now, giving an impromptu speech about love and commitment. Felix gazed up at her adoringly. "Meet me after dinner," I said quietly. "The guest house. And bring whatever paperwork you have on that prenup." Jocelyn nodded. "I'll be there." An hour later, she knocked on my door carrying a leather portfolio. I let her in and closed the curtains. "Before I show you anything," I said, "I need to know what you can do with the information." "That depends on what the information is." I pulled out my phone and played Sophia's voicemail. Jocelyn listened without expression, but I saw her hands tighten on the portfolio. When it ended, she was quiet for a long moment. "Well," she said finally, "that changes things considerably." "Can you stop the wedding?" "Not legally, no. But I can certainly make sure Felix knows what he's getting into." She opened the portfolio and pulled out several documents. "The prenup, as it stands now, would give Sophia significant assets if they divorce after 5 years. But there's a clause here about fraud and misrepresentation." "What kind of clause?" If either party can be proven to have entered the marriage under false pretenses, the agreement becomes null and void. All assets revert to their original owners. And that voicemail would count as proof. It's a recorded confession of intent to commit marriage fraud. Yes, I'd say it counts. Jocelyn looked at me intently. The question is, what do you want to do with this information? I want to save Felix from making the biggest mistake of his life. And Sophia. I thought about years of condescension, of being treated like a charity case, of sitting silently while my family mocked everything about me. Sophia made her choice when she decided to record herself admitting to fraud. I'm just making sure there are consequences. Jocelyn smiled for the first time since I'd met her. I like you, Lara. You're smarter than your family gives you credit for. You have no idea. So what's the plan? I looked at the documents spread across my tiny table. How would you feel about a little public humiliation? Tomorrow night, in front of all the wedding guests? I think that sounds like exactly what Sophia deserves. We spent the next hour planning. By the time Jocelyn left, we had a strategy that would expose Sophia's true intentions in the most devastating way possible. The wedding was tomorrow. Sophia had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up to squealing and laughter from the main house. Sophia's final pre-wedding celebration was in full swing. I grabbed coffee from the kitchen and found Sophia surrounded by gift boxes on the living room floor. Her bridesmaids sat in a circle, cooing over each present she unwrapped. "Oh my God! Tiffany earrings!" Sophia held up a pair of diamond studs. "These are gorgeous. From Felix's grandmother," one of the bridesmaids said. "She wanted you to have something special. I love his family. They have such good taste." Sophia winked. "And such deep pockets." More laughter. I stayed in the doorway, sipping my coffee and watching the show. "What's this one?" Sophia picked up a small wrapped box. "That's from the DJ," Abigail said. "He wanted to give you something for the reception tonight." Sophia tore off the wrapping to reveal a USB drive in a small gift box. "A playlist?" "He said it's a surprise montage of messages from friends and family who couldn't make it," Abigail explained. "He'll play it during dinner." How sweet. Sophia tossed the USB drive aside carelessly. I love surprises. I nearly choked on my coffee. Quincy had done it. He'd actually packaged the voicemail as a wedding gift. "Lara!" Sophia noticed me for the first time. "There you are. I was wondering if you'd disappeared." "Just getting coffee." "Well, come sit. You should see all these amazing gifts. Maybe you'll get some ideas for when you finally find someone." She paused. "If you ever do." The bridesmaids giggled. I sat down in an empty chair and watched Sophia continue her unwrapping spree. "This is from Felix's business partner," she said, pulling out an expensive bottle of champagne. "Dom Perignon. We'll save this for our first anniversary." "Or your divorce party," one of the bridesmaids joked. "Don't even joke about that," Sophia said, but she was smiling. "I plan to be married for a very long time." "At least 5 years, right?" another bridesmaid said with a wink. Sophia's smile faltered for just a second. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just, the prenup stuff you were talking about last night." "I was drunk." "I say stupid things when I'm drunk." "We all do," the first bridesmaid said quickly. "Don't worry about it." But Sophia was looking around the room now, suddenly alert. "What exactly did I say last night?" "Nothing bad," Abigail said. "Just some silly comments about money. You know how you get when you've had too much wine." "Mum, what did I say?" "It doesn't matter, darling. Today is your wedding day. Focus on that." Sophia's eyes found mine across the room. "Lara, you were here last night, weren't you? What did you hear?" "I was in the guest house," I said calmly. "I went to bed early." She studied my face for a moment, then seemed to relax. "Right, of course you did." The gift opening continued, but the mood had shifted slightly. Sophia kept glancing around the room, as if trying to remember exactly what she'd said the night before. After the bridesmaids left to get ready, I found myself alone in the kitchen with Sophia. She was eating yogurt and scrolling through her phone. "Big day," I said, refilling my coffee mug. "The biggest." She didn't look up from her phone. "Felix seems really happy." "He should be. He's marrying me. Right, and you're happy too? Now she looked up. Of course I'm happy. Why wouldn't I be happy? No reason, just making conversation. She went back to her phone, but I could see tension in her shoulders. You know, she said after a moment, I've been thinking about what the girls said earlier, about things I might have said last night. Okay. I hope you know that if I said anything inappropriate, it was just the alcohol talking. Sometimes I say things I don't mean when I'm drunk. I'm sure you do. I mean, everyone knows I love Felix. I would never do anything to hurt him. Of course not. She set down her phone and looked directly at me. You'd tell me if you heard something concerning, wouldn't you? As family. What would I have heard? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. We stared at each other across the kitchen island. Sophia's phone buzzed with a text, breaking the tension. It's Felix, she said, reading the message. He says he can't wait to marry me, she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. See? He loves me. I'm sure he does. He really does, and I love him too. Despite what anyone might think they heard. Sophia, is there something you want to tell me? She stood up abruptly. I need to start getting ready. The hair and makeup people will be here soon. As she walked toward the door, her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and answered. Hey, babe. No, I'm just having breakfast. Yeah, what? No, I didn't say anything like that. Felix, you're being paranoid. She stepped out onto the patio, but I could still hear her through the open door. Someone's been filling your head with nonsense. No, I don't know who would say something like that. Felix, please, can we talk about this after the wedding? Her voice was getting higher, more strained. What do you mean your aunt wants to talk to me? About what? Felix, you're scaring me. The conversation continued, but Sophia moved further away from the house. When she came back inside 10 minutes later, her face was pale. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, she said quickly. Everything's fine. Felix is just nervous, wedding day jitters, but her hands were shaking as she put her phone down. You know what, Lara? I think I was wrong earlier. I think you should tell me if you heard anything last night. Anything at all. I looked at her for a long moment. Like what? You tell me. I told you I was in the guest house. Right. She nodded, but her eyes were wild. Right, of course you were. She practically ran from the room. I pulled out my phone and texted Jocelyn. It's working! She's panicking! The response came back immediately. Good! See you tonight! The ceremony was beautiful, I had to admit. Sophia looked stunning in her designer gown, walking down the aisle between rows of white roses and baby's breath. Felix waited at the altar with tears in his eyes, completely mesmerized by his bride. I sat in the back row, watching it all unfold. The vows were traditional, nothing personal or heartfelt. Sophia's voice was steady, as she promised to love and cherish Felix for as long as we both shall live. She didn't stumble over the words, didn't show any sign of the panic I'd witnessed that morning. You may kiss the bride, the officiant announced. Felix lifted Sophia's veil and kissed her as the guests erupted in applause. Rice flew through the air as they walked back down the aisle hand in hand, beaming at their friends and family. The reception was held in the vineyard's main pavilion, strung with fairy lights and decorated with more white roses than I'd ever seen in one place. Round tables surrounded a dance floor, and Quincy's DJ setup dominated one corner of the space. I found my assigned seat at a table near the back, naturally. The other guests at my table were distant relatives I barely knew, which was fine by me. I needed to stay focused on what was about to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, Quincy's voice came through the sound system as the wedding party took their seats at the head table. Please welcome Mr. and Mrs. Felix Roberts. More applause as Sophia and Felix entered the pavilion. They looked radiant, waving to their guests as they made their way to the head table. Dinner was served, filet mignon and lobster, with wine that probably cost more per bottle than most people spent on groceries in a month. I picked at my food, my stomach too twisted with nerves to eat much. Sophia kept glancing around the room during dinner, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. She'd catch Felix's hand and squeeze it, laugh a little too loudly at his jokes, play the part of the blissful bride. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept checking her phone. Everything okay, sweetheart? Felix asked during the main course. Perfect, Sophia said, leaning over to kiss his cheek. just taking it all in. Our perfect day. It really is perfect, isn't it? Felix looked around the room with genuine happiness. I can't believe we're actually married. Neither can I, Sophia murmured, but there was something hollow in her voice. As dessert was being served, Quincy stepped up to the microphone again. Before we get the dancing started, he announced, I have a special surprise for the happy couple. Some friends and family who couldn't be here tonight wanted to share their congratulations. Sophia's fork clattered against her plate. She looked up sharply at Quincy, then around the room. This is a montage of messages from people who love you both and wanted to be part of your special day, Quincy continued. So sit back, relax, and enjoy these heartfelt wishes. The lights dimmed slightly, and a screen descended from the ceiling. Sophia's face had gone completely white. Felix, she said urgently, grabbing his arm. Maybe we should skip this part and go straight to dancing. Are you kidding? I want to hear what everyone has to say. Felix squeezed her hand. This is so thoughtful. The first message began playing. Sophia's college roommate wishing them happiness, then Felix's business partner, then Sophia's grandmother from Florida. Sophia relaxed slightly as the normal, expected messages played. She even smiled and waved when her grandmother appeared on screen. But I could see Quincy at his station, his finger hovering over his laptop. He caught my eye across the room and raised an eyebrow. I nodded once. And now, Quincy said into the microphone, one more surprise message before we start the music montage. Sophia's head snapped up. Wait, what? But it was too late. Quincy had already pressed play. Sophia's own voice filled the pavilion, slurred and giggly from the night before. Hey family, just wanted to say I'm so excited for tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, but you know what I mean. The wedding. I can't wait to be Mrs. Felix Roberts. And I especially can't wait to divorce him and get the beach house. The room went dead silent. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every eye in the pavilion turned toward the head table. Felix's face went from confusion to shock to something that looked like physical pain. His money talks, and my lawyer doesn't ask questions, Sophia's recorded voice continued cheerfully. 5 years, maybe less if I play my cards right. Then it's hello Malibu. God, I love being smart. Sophia, you're recording. Another voice said on the recording. Oh shit. Whatever, it's just family. They know I'm kidding. Sort of. Okay. Bye. The message ended. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Sophia shot to her feet, her chair falling backward. That's not... I was drunk. I didn't mean... But Felix was already standing too, backing away from her like she was toxic. Felix, please, let me explain. Explain what? His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried across the silent room. Explain how you just married me planning to divorce me. Explain how this was all a lie. It wasn't a lie. I love you. You love my money. Sophia looked around the room desperately, her eyes wild. She spotted Quincy at the DJ station and started toward him. You did this! How dare you! But before she could reach him, Jocelyn stood up from her table near the front. Sophia, she said calmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. I think you should sit down. Who the hell are you to tell me what to do? I'm Felix's attorney. And I have something for you. Jocelyn walked to the head table carrying a manila envelope. She set it down between Sophia and Felix's place settings. What is this? Sophia demanded. Your prenup. The updated version. The one that nullifies all financial agreements due to documented evidence of marriage fraud. Sophia stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Around the room, guests were whispering, phones were coming out, and someone's aunt was audibly gasping. Felix picked up the envelope with shaking hands. Marriage fraud. The recording we just heard constitutes a legal confession of intent to defraud, Jocelyn explained, which means the prenuptial agreement is void. All assets remain with their original owners. Sophia's face crumpled. Felix, please! I can explain everything. I was drunk. I was joking. But Felix was already walking away, the envelope clutched in his hand. Felix! Sophia screamed after him. Don't leave me! Please! He didn't look back. Sophia stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor, her wedding dress pooling around her feet like spilled milk. The silence in the pavilion was deafening. Then the whispers started. Did she really just say that? 5 years, and then divorce him? I can't believe she recorded herself saying that. Sophia's head whipped around the room, her eyes wild. It was a joke. I was drunk. You all know I was kidding. But nobody was buying it. Guests were pulling out their phones, some already typing furiously. Others were gathering their purses and heading for the exits. Where are you all going? Sophia shrieked. The party isn't over. We haven't even cut the cake. Abigail rushed to her daughter's side. Sophia, darling, maybe we should... Should what, Mum? Should what? Sophia spun around to face her mother. Should pretend this isn't happening. Should act like my entire life isn't falling apart. We need to do damage control, Abigail said quietly. Get you out of here. Figure out how to fix this. Fix this? Sophia laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. How exactly do you fix this? Everyone just heard me admit I was planning to divorce my husband for money. She turned toward Quincy, who was still standing at his DJ station. You! This is all your fault. She lunged toward him, but her massive dress caught under her feet and she stumbled. 2 of her bridesmaids caught her arms. Sophia, calm down, one of them said. Don't tell me to calm down. Someone sabotaged my wedding. Her mascara was running now, black streaks down her cheeks. Someone set me up. You set yourself up, a voice said from the crowd. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was Felix's grandmother, an elderly woman in pearls who'd been sitting quietly at the family table. Excuse me, Sophia snarled. You recorded yourself, dear. Nobody forced you to say those things. The old woman's voice was steady and cold. Nobody forced you to plan to steal from my grandson. I wasn't going to steal anything. It would have been a legal divorce settlement, based on lies and manipulation, Jocelyn interjected. She was still standing calmly beside the head table, the prenup documents in her hand, which, legally speaking, constitutes fraud. Sophia whirled around to face her. And who the hell are you to interfere in my marriage? I'm the person who's been investigating you for the past 3 months, Jocelyn said matter-of-factly, at Felix's request. The room went even quieter, if that was possible. What? Sophia's voice cracked. Felix had concerns about your motivations. He asked me to look into your background, your financial situation, your previous relationships. Jocelyn opened a folder she'd been carrying. Did you know your last boyfriend filed a restraining order against you? Something about threatening to ruin his business when he broke up with you? That was different. Or that you've been researching California divorce law for the past 6 months. Specifically community property statutes and asset division timelines? Sophia's face went from pale to grey. You had no right. I had every right to protect my nephew from a predator. The word predator hung in the air like a slap. Sophia recoiled as if she'd been physically struck. I'm not a predator! I loved him! You loved his bank account, Jocelyn said. There's a difference. Sophia looked around the room desperately, searching for a friendly face, someone who might defend her. But the guests were all staring at her with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. Her eyes landed on me, still sitting quietly at my table in the back. You, she said, pointing a shaking finger in my direction. You did this. You're behind all of this. I stood up slowly, smoothing down my clearance dress. I didn't do anything, Sophia. Bullshit. You've always been jealous of me. You couldn't stand that I was successful, that I was getting married, that I was happy. Were you happy? I asked calmly. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you were planning to destroy an innocent man's life for money. That doesn't sound like happiness to me. You don't know anything about my life. I know you recorded yourself admitting to marriage fraud. I know you've spent years treating me like garbage because you thought I was beneath you. And I know that right now, everyone in this room can see exactly who you really are. Sophia's face twisted with rage. You think you're so smart, don't you? Sitting there in your thrift store dress, acting all superior, but you're still the same pathetic loser you've always been. Maybe, I said, but at least I'm not a criminal. That broke something in Sophia. She let out a sound that was half scream, half sob, and started toward me, but her bridesmaids held her back. "Let me go." "Let me at her!" "Sophia, stop!" Abigail hissed. "You're making it worse!" "Worse? How could it possibly be worse?" Sophia was crying openly now, her perfect makeup completely ruined. "My marriage is over. My reputation is destroyed. Everyone thinks I'm a gold digger." "Because you are a gold digger," someone called out from the crowd. Sophia spun around, but couldn't identify who had spoken. "Shut up! All of you, just shut up!" But the damage was done. The guests were filing out now, some shaking their heads, others whispering excitedly about the drama they'd just witnessed. The wedding photographer was packing up his equipment. Even the catering staff was starting to clear tables. "Where is everyone going?" Sophia wailed. "The reception isn't over!" But it was over. Everyone could see that except Sophia. Abigail put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Come on, darling. Let's get you out of that dress and figure out what to do next." "What to do next?" Sophia laughed bitterly. "What is there to do? My life is ruined." As they walked toward the exit, Sophia turned back one more time to look at me. "This isn't over," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. "You think you've won, but this isn't over." "Yes, it is," I said quietly. And it was. The pavilion emptied quickly after that, leaving only a few stragglers and the clean-up crew. I sat alone at my table, watching the staff stack chairs and blow out candles. Quincy approached with his equipment bag slung over his shoulder. "Well," he said, "that was something. That's one word for it. You okay?" I looked around the empty pavilion, at the abandoned wedding cake and the wilted flowers. "Yeah," I said, "I'm okay." For the first time in years, I really was. The sun was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown condo when my phone rang. I was sitting on my balcony with coffee and my laptop, reviewing investment portfolios, when I saw my mother's name on the screen. "Hi, Mum." "Lara, honey, I need to talk to you." Her voice sounded different, smaller somehow. "What's going on?" "It's about the wedding, about Sophia, about everything." She took a shaky breath. "Can I come see you? I'm already in the city." An hour later, she was sitting on my couch, looking around my spacious apartment with obvious surprise. "This place is beautiful, Lara. I had no idea you were doing so well." "You never asked," she flinched. "I know, and that's part of why I'm here." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I owe you an apology. A big one." "Mom." "No, let me say this. I've been thinking about that night at the wedding, about everything that happened, and I realized something terrible." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I failed you. For years, I let Abigail and Sophia treat you horribly, and I just stood by and watched. You tried to defend me sometimes. Barely. And never when it really mattered." She wiped her eyes. "I was so focused on keeping the peace, on not rocking the boat, that I forgot my job was to protect my daughter." I set down my coffee mug. "What's brought this on?" "Sophia called me yesterday. She's not doing well. The wedding video is all over social media." "Someone posted the voicemail recording online. She can't get a job, can't show her face anywhere. Abigail is furious with her. And she blamed you. Said you ruined her life out of jealousy. Said you were always the vindictive one in the family." My mother's voice hardened. "That's when I realised I'd been enabling this behaviour for decades." She reached into her purse and pulled out a cheque. "What's this?" I asked. "It's from your college fund. The one your father set up before he died. Abigail convinced me to loan it to Sophia for her business degree. She said she'd pay it back with interest." My mother's laugh was bitter. "That was 7 years ago." I looked at the cheque. "It was for $43,000. Mum, I don't need—" "Yes, you do. Not the money, maybe, but you need to know that I see you now. Really see you. You built this life, this success, all on your own while we were too busy fawning over Sophia's fake achievements. Her achievements weren't all fake, weren't they? Her business degree was paid for with your money. Her fancy apartment was subsidised by Abigail. Even her wedding dress was bought with money Abigail borrowed against the house." My mother shook her head. "Everything about Sophia's life was built on other people's sacrifices." There was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and smiled. "Come in," I called out. "It's open." Francesca walked in carrying 2 grocery bags and wearing a UCLA sweatshirt. "Hey, I got those organic vegetables you like, and oh." She stopped when she saw my mother. "Hi, Aunt Eleanor." "Francesca, what are you doing here?" "I live here now," Francesca said, setting the bags on my kitchen counter. "Lara's letting me stay while I finish school." "Turns out my trust fund was empty to pay for Sophia's wedding." My mother stared. "What?" "Mum cleaned out my college fund to pay for the reception. Said it was a family investment." Francesca shrugged. "Lara offered me the guest room and a part-time job doing bookkeeping for her clients. Best thing that ever happened to me, honestly." "You're working for Lara?" "With Lara," I corrected. "Francesca's brilliant with numbers. She's going to make an excellent accountant." My mother looked between us. "I don't understand. How are you affording all this? The apartment, helping Francesca?" I pulled out my phone and showed her my investment app. Her eyes widened when she saw the balance. "How is this possible?" "Remember when I dropped out of law school? When everyone said I was having a breakdown and couldn't handle the pressure? Yes. I wasn't having a breakdown. I was having a breakthrough. I realised I didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted to understand money, how it works, how to make it grow." I gestured around the apartment. "So I taught myself. Started small, reinvested everything, built it up slowly. But you never said anything. Would you have believed me? Or would you have assumed I was lying to make myself feel better about dropping out?" She was quiet for a long moment. "The second one." "Exactly." Francesca joined us in the living room. "Lara's been managing money for small businesses for years. She's got clients all over the state. Some of them don't even know how successful she's made them." "Like the vineyard where the wedding was held," I added. "I've been their silent partner for 3 years. When Sophia's family trashed the reception and refused to pay for damages, I covered it, anonymously." "You paid for the cleanup?" "I paid for everything. The broken glasses, the ruined linens, the overtime for the staff. The vineyard owner never knew it was me." My mother was staring at me like she was seeing a stranger. "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do, and because I could afford it." My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it and smiled. "Who's that?" Francesca asked. "Quincy. He's asking if I want to go to dinner tonight." I looked up at my mother. "He's been asking me out for weeks, but I've been too busy getting my life in order." "The DJ from the wedding?" "The DJ who helped expose Sophia's plan, yes. Turns out we have a lot in common." My mother was quiet for a while, processing everything. "I have something else to tell you," she said finally. "Felix called me yesterday." "Felix? Why?" "He wanted to thank you. Jocelyn told him you were the one who brought the voicemail to their attention. He said you saved him from making the biggest mistake of his life. How is he doing?" "Better. The marriage was annulled, so legally it never happened. He's taking some time off, travelling with friends, but he wanted you to know he's grateful." I nodded. "Good. He deserves better than what Sophia had planned for him." "Lara," my mother said, reaching for my hand, "can you forgive me? For all those years of not seeing you, not defending you, not believing in you." I looked at her, then at Francesca, who was quietly organising groceries in my kitchen, at my phone with Quincy's text asking about dinner, at my laptop showing the portfolio I'd built through years of quiet determination. "There's nothing to forgive, Mum. We're good." She squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm so proud of who you've become." "Thanks. And Lara, next family gathering, you're driving whatever car you want, and sitting wherever you want, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can answer to me." I laughed. "Actually, I was thinking of getting a new car. Maybe something with better air conditioning." "What kind?" I grinned. "I was thinking another Corolla. A brand new one this time." "Why a Corolla?" I looked out at my balcony, at the city skyline beyond, at the life I'd built quietly and carefully, while everyone else was looking the other way, because now it's not about the money, it's about the principle. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Quincy. "Go," Francesca said, looking up from the kitchen. "Answer him. You deserve to be happy." I picked up my phone and typed back, "Yes to dinner." "Pick me up at 7. Then I looked at my mother and my cousin, at my beautiful apartment and my successful business, at the life I'd created despite everyone's expectations. They'd laughed when I pulled up to that wedding in my beat-up Corolla, but nobody was laughing now.
The photo sits on the mantelpiece like a loaded gun, tucked behind a vase of white orchids where no one thinks to look. In it, I'm holding a set of keys, grinning like I just won the lottery, which in a way I did. My name is Natasha, and today I'm hosting Thanksgiving dinner in what my family believes is my roommate's house. They have no idea I'm the one who bought this $4 million Brooklyn brownstone with cash. Natasha, honey, where should I put my coat? My mother's voice carries that familiar edge of judgment as she steps into the foyer. Lorelei has perfected the art of making every question sound like criticism. The closet's right there, Mom. I gesture toward the mahogany armoire I had custom built last spring. She runs her manicured fingers along the carved details. Your roommate certainly has exquisite taste. What does she do again? Investment consulting? The lie rolls off my tongue like silk. Jennifer and I rehearsed this months ago. How fortunate for you to live somewhere so elevated. Mum's eyes sweep the vaulted ceilings, the restored hardwood floors, the original crown moulding that cost me $30,000 to repair. Such a step up from that dreadful studio apartment. My father appears behind her, his retired judge posture as rigid as ever. Walker takes in the space with the calculating gaze he once reserved for defendants. Impressive place, he admits grudgingly. Rent must be astronomical. I manage. I smile sweetly, the same smile I've worn through years of their disappointment. Riley breezes in next, her engagement ring catching the light from the crystal chandelier. My older sister has always known how to make an entrance. Her fiancé, Maurice, trails behind, checking his phone. Tash! Riley air kisses my cheek. This place gets more gorgeous every time I see it. You're so lucky your roommate lets you host here. Lucky, the word tastes bitter in my mouth. Where is the mysterious roommate anyway? Maurice asks, finally looking up from his screen. I'd love to meet the woman who can afford this palace. Jennifer's visiting family in Portland. Another rehearsed line. In reality, she's upstairs in the guest room, ready to play her part if needed. Brian bounds through the door like an overgrown puppy, immediately gravitating toward the bar cart I stocked with top-shelf liquor. Holy shit, Nat, this place screams money. My younger brother pops open a bottle of champagne that costs more than most people's rent. Your roommate single? Asking for a friend. Language, Brian. Mum's disapproval is automatic. Sorry, Ma, but seriously, Nat, you hit the roommate jackpot. What's she like? Some tech heiress? Wall Street princess? I pour myself a glass of wine, a Tunti 15 Bordeaux from my personal collection. She's very private. Private and loaded, Brian grins. The dream combo. Dad settles into the leather armchair I bought because it reminded me of his old study, back when I was still welcome in it. Well, whoever she is, she's given you quite the opportunity. This is certainly more appropriate than those art shows you used to do. The dismissal in his voice is casual, practiced. Like my decade of creative work was just an embarrassing phase we're all pretending never happened. Those art shows paid my bills, I say quietly. Barely, Mum interjects. Thank goodness you found more stable living arrangements. Stable. If only they knew how stable 6 figures in crypto gains could be. Riley examines the dining room table, set with bone china and crystal that cost more than her car payment. This is stunning, Nat. Very sophisticated. You've really learned to present things properly. Present things properly, as if I'd been some feral creature before, incapable of basic social graces. Dinner's almost ready, I announce, retreating toward the kitchen before I say something I'll regret. The kitchen is my sanctuary, marble countertops, professional-grade appliances, and a wine fridge stocked with bottles that would make a sommelier weep. I check the turkey, golden and perfect in the oven I dreamed of owning since culinary school. The school I couldn't afford because Dad cut off my funding when I refused law school. Need help? Riley appears in the doorway. I've got it handled. You always do. She leans against the counter. I have to admit, I was worried about you for a while. After the whole family blow-up, when Dad stopped helping with your expenses, I thought you might really struggle. Struggle? I did struggle. I ate ramen for months while building my crypto portfolio. I sold paintings on street corners while learning about NFTs. I worked 3 jobs while my family wrote me off as a failure. But look at you now, Riley continues, living in this incredible place, hosting dinner like a proper adult. I'm proud of you for landing on your feet. Landing on my feet. Like I stumbled into success instead of clawing my way to it. Thanks, I manage. The timer chimes. Turkey's done. I pull it from the oven, golden and glistening, and carry it to the dining room where my family waits around the table I bought, in the house I own, eating the meal I paid for. They think I'm lucky to be here. They have no idea. The carving knife glides through the turkey like butter. Each slice falls perfectly onto the serving platter while my family settles around the table, their voices filling the dining room with familiar chatter. This smells incredible, Brian says, already reaching for the wine. Seriously, Nat, when did you become such a domestic goddess? YouTube University, I reply, arranging the meat on the platter. Riley laughs. At least you're putting that art degree to use somewhere. Presentation is everything. There it is, the first jab, delivered with a smile. Maurice adjusts his tie and surveys the spread. Impressive setup. Your roommate must be doing very well for herself. What kind of investment consulting? Cryptocurrency and digital assets, I say, passing him the cranberry sauce. The Wild West of finance. Dad cuts into his turkey with surgical precision. Risky business. Easy come, easy go. Some people know how to navigate risk, I reply. Mom dabs her lips with the linen napkin. Well, we're just grateful she's generous enough to let you use her beautiful home. This china is exquisite. Wedgwood? Royal Crown Derby. Of course it is. She examines the gold rim. Your roommate has impeccable taste. Very old money aesthetic. Brian grins. Speaking of money, Riley, how's the wedding planning going? Maurice's company going public must make things easier. Riley's face lights up. It's been amazing. We're looking at venues in the Hamptons now. Maurice's firm is projected to triple in value once the IPO hits. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Mom beams. A summer wedding in the Hamptons. How perfect. Maurice straightens in his chair. The tech sector's exploding right now. We're positioned to be major players. I've got investors lined up around the block. Investors love a good story, Dad nods approvingly. Success breeds success. Speaking of success, Brian turns to me with a mischievous grin. Nat, please tell me you're not still doing those weird digital art things. What were they called? NFTs. The table goes quiet. I set down my fork carefully. They're called non-fungible tokens, and yes, I still work in digital art. Riley exchanges a look with Mom. Honey, those were such a fad. Remember when everyone was buying pictures of monkeys for thousands of dollars? Thank goodness that bubble burst. The market corrected, I say evenly, but it didn't disappear. Maurice chuckles. The whole NFT thing was basically a pyramid scheme. A bunch of tech bros convincing people that JPEGs were investments. Anyone who got in early and got out fast made money, but most people lost their shirts. Some people made quite a bit, I reply. Sure, the scammers did. He takes a sip of wine. But for regular people, it was financial suicide. I feel bad for anyone who fell for that nonsense. Brian laughs. Remember when Nat tried to explain blockchain to us at Christmas? I thought she was speaking another language. Because you weren't listening. I was listening. You said something about mining and digital wallets, and I thought you'd joined a cult. The laughter around the table feels sharp. I reach for my wine glass, my phone buzzing against my leg. A text from Jennifer upstairs. Everything okay down there? I can hear the condescension from the third floor. Another text appears immediately after, this one from Caden. All deed copies delivered. Countdown, dessert. My heart rate picks up. I slide the phone back into my pocket. Natasha's always been creative, Mum says in that tone she uses when she's trying to be supportive but can't quite manage it. Remember her little art shows? So experimental. I sold pieces at those shows. Of course you did, dear. I just meant they were very niche. Dad clears his throat. The important thing is you've found stability now. This living situation seems much more appropriate for someone your age. Appropriate? Well, yes, you're 32, Natasha. It's time to think practically. This house, this lifestyle, it shows maturity, growth. Riley nods enthusiastically. Exactly, you're finally living like an adult. No more of that bohemian artist phase. Phase? You know what I mean. The struggling artist thing was fine in your 20s, but it wasn't sustainable. This is so much better. I stand up abruptly. I should check on dessert. Need help? Mum calls after me. I've got it. In the kitchen, I lean against the marble counter and breathe deeply. My phone buzzes again. Jennifer. Want me to come down and accidentally spill wine on someone? I almost smile. Almost. Instead, I open the drawer next to the sink. Inside, 7 cream-coloured envelopes sit in a neat row, each one labelled with a family member's name in my careful handwriting. My fingers trace the edge of my father's envelope. Natasha? Riley's voice comes from the doorway. Everything all right? Perfect. I close the drawer and turn around. Just getting the pumpkin pie ready. This has been lovely, really. You've outdone yourself. Have I? Absolutely, and I have to say, I'm proud of you for adapting, for finding a way to make things work after Dad had to cut you off. It couldn't have been easy. Had to cut me off, like it was some unavoidable tragedy instead of a choice. No, I say quietly, it wasn't easy. But look at you now. Living in this gorgeous house, hosting family dinners like a proper hostess, you've really turned things around. I pull the pie from the oven, golden and perfect. Yes, I really have. The pumpkin pie sits cooling on the counter while I arrange dessert plates on a silver tray. Each bite of dinner has been perfectly seasoned, not just with herbs and spices, but with years of accumulated resentment. Natasha, this meal was exceptional, Dad calls from the dining room. Please give our compliments to your roommate. Her kitchen is clearly well equipped. I'll be sure to tell her, I call back, sliding the pie server into my hand like a weapon. Back at the table, everyone's settled into that post-dinner contentment. Brian's loosened his tie, Riley's kicked off her heels under the table, and Maurice is scrolling through his phone again. So, Nat, Brian says as I set down the pie, level with us. Are you actually contributing to rent here, or are you basically a live-in house sitter? Brian, Mum scolds, but her eyes show she's curious too. What? It's a legitimate question. This place has to cost what, 15 grand a month? 20? No offence, but selling finger paintings doesn't exactly scream luxury rent money. Riley giggles. He has a point. I mean, we're all wondering how this arrangement works. Maybe she's doing Uber Eats on the side, Brian grins. Nothing wrong with the hustle. Got to pay the bills somehow. Maurice looks up from his phone. Actually, that's not a bad side gig. I know plenty of people in tech who drive for extra cash. The flexibility works well with creative schedules. Creative schedules? Dad repeats with a slight smile. Is that what we're calling unemployment now? The laughter ripples around the table. I cut into the pie, each slice precise and even. I'm not unemployed. Of course not, sweetheart, Mum says quickly. Your art is lovely, very expressive. Remember that painting you did of the melting clocks? Riley asks. Very Dali-esque. though I never quite understood what it was supposed to mean. It wasn't supposed to mean anything specific. Art doesn't always need to be literal. Maurice chuckles. See, that's the problem with the art world. Everything's so pretentious. It doesn't need to mean anything. Just admit you threw some paint on a canvas and called it deep. Maurice, Riley swats his arm playfully. Don't be mean. I'm not being mean, I'm being honest. The whole contemporary art scene is a scam. Rich people buying garbage because they think it makes them cultured. Brian raises his glass. Amen to that. Remember when that banana duct taped to a wall sold for like 100 grand? Insanity. That was performance art, I say, serving the first slice of pie. It was a banana, on a wall, with tape. Dad shakes his head. The fact that anyone paid money for that proves Morris's point. The art market is complex. The art market is a money laundering scheme, Morris interrupts. Rich people trading overpriced nonsense to avoid taxes. Your NFT thing was just the digital version of the same con. My hand tightens on the pie server. You seem to know a lot about something you just called a scam. I know enough to stay away from it, unlike some people who probably lost their life savings chasing digital fairy tales. Riley accepts her slice of pie. Let's not talk about money anymore. It's depressing. Natasha, this pie smells incredible. Did you make it from scratch? Everything's from scratch. Even the crust? Impressive. I can barely manage store-bought. Mum takes a delicate bite. Delicious. Your roommate is lucky to have such a talented cook living here. I'm sure she appreciates the home-cooked meals. I'm sure she does. Does she eat with you often? Dad asks. It seems odd that we've never met her. She travels frequently for work. How convenient, Brian smirks. The mysterious roommate who's never around, but somehow pays for this palace. My phone buzzes. Jennifer again. Should I make an appearance? I can be the eccentric heiress if needed. I type back quickly. Stay put, almost time. Who's texting? Riley peers over. Jennifer? Yes. Your roommate? Yes. Tell her we said thank you for letting us use her gorgeous home, Mum says, and that we'd love to meet her sometime. I'll pass that along. Maurice sets down his fork. You know what's funny? For someone who supposedly lives here, you seem awfully comfortable playing hostess. Most people would defer to the actual homeowner. The table goes quiet. Everyone's looking at me now. What do you mean? Riley asks. I mean, she's acting like she owns the place, hosting dinner, serving from her own dishes, playing lady of the manor. It's a bit presumptuous. Maurice, Riley's voice carries a warning. I'm just saying, if I was crashing at someone's place, I'd be a little more humble about it. Dad clears his throat. Perhaps we should be grateful that Natasha has found such accommodating living arrangements. Oh, I'm grateful, Maurice continues. I'm just curious about the dynamic. This whole setup seems very convenient. I stand up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Where are you going? Mum asks. To get something from the kitchen. Dessert wine, Brian suggests hopefully. Something like that. I walk to the kitchen, my heart pounding. In the drawer, the 7 envelopes wait like soldiers in formation. I pick them up, feeling their weight. When I return to the dining room, I'm carrying a small wooden box instead of wine. What's that? Riley asks. I place the box at the head of the table, right next to Dad's coffee cup. Dessert, I say simply. That's a very small pie, Brian jokes. I open the box. Inside, the 7 envelopes are arranged perfectly, each name visible in gold lettering. Actually, I say, pulling out the first envelope, I thought we'd try something different this year. I slide the first envelope across the polished table to Dad. His name gleams in gold script across the cream paper. What's this? He picks it up, turning it over in his hands. A little Thanksgiving tradition I wanted to start. I distribute the remaining envelopes, one by one. Mom, Riley, Maurice, Brian. Each envelope lands with a soft whisper against the table. "Natasha, this is so sweet," Riley coos, examining her envelope. "What is it? Gratitude letters?" "Something like that." Brian shakes his envelope next to his ear. "Feels like papers. Please tell me it's not poetry. Remember your haiku phase?" "Just open them." Mum carefully breaks the wax seal on hers, ever mindful of presentation. "Oh my, this is very formal. What lovely stationery." Dad slides his finger under the flap. "Very mysterious, Natasha." "You always did have a flair for the dramatic." One by one they extract the documents. The room fills with the soft rustle of unfolding papers. Riley opens hers first. Her eyes scan the page once, twice. The colour drains from her face. "What is this?" "Keep reading." Maurice glances over at Riley's papers, then quickly opens his own envelope. His expression shifts from curiosity to confusion, to something approaching panic. This can't be right." Mum's hands tremble slightly as she reads. "Natasha, I don't understand. What is this document?" "It's a property closing statement." Brian looks up from his papers, his usual grin replaced by bewilderment. "Property closing for what?" "This house." The silence stretches like a taut wire. Dad sets his papers down carefully, his judge's training keeping his expression neutral even as his knuckles go white. "These documents show you as the purchaser." "That's correct." Riley's voice comes out as a whisper. "You bought this house." "Cash purchase, closed 6 months ago." Maurice laughs, but it sounds forced. "This has to be some kind of joke, a prank or something." "Check the second page." They flip through the documents. More silence, more rustling paper. "There are 2 other properties listed here," Mum says faintly. "A duplex in Park Slope and a condo in Manhattan. Also, cash purchases." Brian drops his papers like they're on fire. "Holy shit, Nat! Are you serious right now?" "Language," Mum says automatically, but her heart isn't in it. Dad leans back in his chair, studying me with the same intensity he once reserved for hostile witnesses. "How?" "Cryptocurrency, NFTs, digital art investments, everything you all dismissed as worthless." Riley's voice cracks. But you were broke. Dad cut you off. You were struggling." "I was." "For about 6 months, then I figured it out." Maurice shakes his head vigorously. "This is impossible. The NFT market crashed. Everyone lost money." "Everyone who got in late and panicked. I got in early. I got out smart. I diversified." "But the amounts here." Mum stares at the papers. "These properties are worth millions." 4.2 million for this house, 1.8 for the duplex, 2.6 for the Manhattan condo. The numbers hang in the air like smoke. $8.6 million, Dad says slowly. "You're claiming you made $8.6 million selling digital art?" "Plus the liquid assets I kept, but yes, roughly that amount." Brian runs his hands through his hair. "I don't understand. If you had this money, why didn't you say anything? Why let us think you were still struggling?" "Because you never asked. You assumed." Riley's eyes fill with tears. "We thought we were helping you. Being supportive by including you, by letting you host here." "Letting me host, in my own house." The words land like physical blows. Maurice crumples his papers. "This is insane. You've been lying to us for months." "I've been protecting myself." "From what?" Mum's voice rises. "From your family?" "From your judgment, your pity, your condescension." Dad stands up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You deliberately deceived us. I gave you exactly what you expected to see, a failure who needed rescuing." "We never said you were a failure," Riley protests. "You didn't have to say it." Maurice waves his papers in the air. "So what is this? Some kind of gotcha moment? You wanted to humiliate us?" I wanted to see how long you'd keep talking down to someone who could buy and sell you without blinking. The room erupts, everyone talking at once, voices rising, overlapping, competing. This is cruel. Completely unnecessary. Why would you do this? Been lying to us for months. I walk to the front window and pull back the curtain. On the brownstone's front steps, exactly where I asked him to place it, sits a small wooden sign. There's something else you should see. They follow my gaze to the window. The real estate sign is small but unmistakable. For sale, historic Brooklyn brownstone. Riley gasps. You're selling? I turn back to face them, my family scattered around the dining room like debris after an explosion. I was just weighing my options. Sell the place. I pause, letting the silence build, or convert it into the very art gallery you all laughed at. The for sale sign gleams under the streetlight like a beacon. My family stares at it through the window, their reflections ghost-like in the glass. An art gallery? Dad's voice cuts through the silence. You'd turn a $4 million property into some vanity project? It wouldn't be vanity if it's profitable. Riley spins around from the window. Profitable? Natasha, art galleries fail all the time. You'd be throwing away everything you've earned. Would I? Or would I be investing in something I actually care about? Maurice crumples his property documents and tosses them on the table. This is exactly the kind of impractical thinking that got you cut off in the first place. What got me cut off was refusing to live the life you all planned for me. Mum sinks back into her chair, her composure finally cracking. We planned a stable life for you, security, respectability. You planned a life that made you comfortable. There's a difference. Brian picks up his wineglass with shaking hands. Okay, but seriously, Nat, why the whole charade? The fake roommate, the secrecy, this elaborate dinner setup, what was the point? The point was to see if anything had changed, if you'd treat me differently once you thought I'd found my place in your world. And? Riley's voice is barely a whisper. You didn't. You still talked down to me, still dismissed my work, still assumed I was lucky to be here instead of capable of earning it. Dad straightens his tie, falling back on his courtroom demeanour. So this entire evening was a test. A manipulation? Every family dinner is a test, Dad. I just decided to grade this one. That's not fair. Fair? I laugh, and it comes out sharper than I intended. Was it fair when you cut off my college funding because I wouldn't switch to pre-law? Was it fair when Mum told me to go starve with my finger paints? Mum flinches. I was angry. You were throwing away your future. I was choosing my future. There's a difference. Maurice stands up, pacing to the window. So what happens now? You've made your point. We're all thoroughly humiliated. What's the end game here? There is no end game. This is just the truth. The truth is, you've been lying to us for months, Riley's voice cracks, making us feel sorry for you while you were secretly richer than all of us combined. I never asked for your pity. You didn't exactly discourage it either. Brian sets down his glass hard enough to splash wine on the tablecloth. Jesus, Nat. Do you know how many times I offered to lend you money, how guilty I felt about not helping more? You offered $50 for groceries, Brian, once, because I thought that's all I could afford to help with. The room falls quiet, except for the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel, the clock I bought because it reminded me of the one in our childhood home. Mum dabs at her eyes with her napkin. I don't understand how you could let us go on thinking you were struggling. Watching us worry about you. Were you worried or were you embarrassed? Both, she admits quietly. Dad moves to the head of the table, his hands gripping the back of his chair. This vindictiveness isn't like you, Natasha. How would you know what I'm like? You haven't spoken to me in 3 years except for obligatory holiday calls. Because you refused every attempt at reconciliation. I refuse to apologize for living my life. Riley wipes her eyes, smearing her mascara. We missed you. We wanted you back in the family. On your terms. On reasonable terms. Reasonable to who? Maurice stops pacing and turns to face me. You know what? Fine, you got us. You're rich, we're idiots, congratulations. But what did this accomplish? You think money validates you now? I think money gives me choices. Like what? Cutting us out of your life permanently? Like not needing your approval anymore? The words hang in the air like smoke from a fire that's already burned everything down. Brian laughs, but there's no humour in it. So that's it? You win, we lose, game over? There was never a game, Brian. There was just a family that couldn't accept who I was. And now? Mum asks. What happens now? I walk back to the table and start collecting the scattered property documents. Now you know the truth. What you do with it is up to you. Riley stands up abruptly, her chair toppling backward. This is insane. You're insane. You want to destroy the family over what? Pride? I want to stop pretending we're something we're not. Which is what? Close. The word lands like a physical blow. Riley staggers backward, Maurice catching her arm. Dad's voice drops to the tone he used for final judgments. If that's how you feel, then perhaps it's best if we leave. Perhaps it is. One by one they gather their coats from the closet, the same closet where I hung their jackets with such careful hope just hours ago. At the door, Riley turns back. You know what the saddest part is? We actually were proud of you tonight, before all this. We thought you'd finally found your way. I did find my way. You just don't like the path I chose. The door closes behind them with a soft click, leaving me alone in my $4 million house with the remnants of a dinner that cost more than most people's cars. From upstairs I hear Jennifer's footsteps on the hardwood floor. Well, she calls down, that went better than expected. Jennifer appears at the top of the stairs, still in her pyjamas and fuzzy slippers. Should I come down or are you coming up? Down. I need wine. She pads down the steps, surveying the disaster zone that used to be my dining room. Crumpled papers scattered across the table, wine stains on the tablecloth, chairs pushed back at odd angles. Looks like Thanksgiving went well. I pour 2 glasses of the Bordeaux, my hands steadier than they should be. They know? All of it? Property values, purchase dates, the works. Caden's documentation was very thorough. Jennifer picks up one of the discarded envelopes, smoothing out the wrinkles. How'd they take it? About as well as you'd expect. Lots of shouting, some crying. Maurice called me vindictive. Maurice can eat shit. Riley said I was insane. Riley's engaged to Maurice, so her judgment is already questionable. I sink into the couch, suddenly exhausted. Maybe they're right. Maybe this was cruel. Cruel? Jennifer sits beside me, tucking her legs under her. They spent 2 hours talking down to you in your own house, at your own table, eating food you paid for. They didn't know it was my house. That's exactly the point. They treated you like garbage when they thought you were poor. That tells you everything you need to know. My phone buzzes on the coffee table. A text from Brian. That was fucked up, Nat, but also kind of brilliant. Call me when you're ready to talk. Another buzz. Riley. I can't believe you did this to us. We trusted you. Another. Dad. Your mother is very upset. I hope you're satisfied. Popular girl tonight, Jennifer observes, reading over my shoulder. They hate me. They're embarrassed. There's a difference. The front door rattles with aggressive knocking. Jennifer and I exchange glances. Round 2, she asks. I peek through the window. Riley stands on the front steps, alone, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Just Riley. I open the door. She pushes past me without invitation, her heels clicking against the hardwood. We need to talk. I thought we covered everything at dinner. We covered your little revenge fantasy. We didn't cover the part where you completely humiliated me in front of my fiancé. Jennifer stands up from the couch. I should go upstairs. No, stay, Riley snaps. You're part of this too, aren't you? The mysterious roommate who's never around but somehow pays for everything. Riley, meet Jennifer. Jennifer, Riley. Jennifer waves awkwardly. Hi, I've heard so much about you. I bet you have. Did you two have fun planning this whole charade, laughing at how stupid we all were? Nobody was laughing, I say. Bullshit. Riley's voice cracks. This whole thing was designed to make us look like idiots. The fake roommate story, the fancy dinner, those fucking envelopes, it was all theatre. You want to talk about theatre? Let's talk about your perfect engagement to Maurice. Riley goes very still. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about the other women. The colour drains from her face. What other women? The Instagram model in Miami, the marketing executive from his office. Should I keep going? Jennifer's eyes widen. She grabs her wine and settles back into the couch like she's watching a movie. You're lying. I hired a private investigator 3 months ago. Want to see the photos? Riley sinks into the nearest chair. Why would you do that? Because something felt off about him. The way he talked about money, about investments. The way he avoided direct questions about his company. You had no right. I had every right to protect my sister from a con artist. Con artist? I pull out my phone and scroll to a folder labelled Maurice. His company isn't going public. It's hemorrhaging money. The investors he bragged about, they pulled out last month. He's been using credit cards to fund his lifestyle. Riley stares at the phone screen, her face crumbling. No, that's not... He wouldn't... The engagement ring is cubic zirconia. I had it appraised. She looks down at her hand, at the ring she's been showing off for months. How do you know that? Because I know jewellery, and because I care about you, even when you're being awful to me. The fight goes out of her completely. She doubles over, sobbing into her hands. Oh God, I'm such an idiot. Jennifer reaches for the tissue box, sliding it across the coffee table. Men are trash. Present company excluded, she adds, glancing at me. I defended him, Riley chokes out between sobs. When you were revealing all your success, he kept making snide comments and I defended him. I chose him over you. You didn't know. I should have known. The signs were there. The expensive dinners he couldn't really afford. The way he always had excuses when I asked about meeting his business partners. She looks up at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Would you have believed me? No, she admits. I would have thought you were jealous. I was jealous, just not of Maurice. Of what? Of the fact that Mum and Dad were so excited about your engagement, so proud. They never looked at me like that. Riley wipes her nose with a tissue. They were proud of you tonight, before the envelopes. Mum kept talking about how elegant everything was, how grown up you seemed. Grown up because I was finally living up to their standards. Maybe, but also because you seemed happy, settled, like you'd found your place. I did find my place. It just wasn't the place they wanted for me. Riley stands up unsteadily. I need to go home. I need to think. Are you going to confront Maurice? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. She pauses at the door. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About tonight, about the way we treated you, about everything. I'm sorry too. For what? For letting it go on so long, for not trusting you enough to tell you the truth. She nods and walks out into the night, leaving me and Jennifer alone with the wreckage of Thanksgiving dinner. Well, Jennifer says, refilling our wine glasses, that was intense. Think she'll be okay? She's stronger than she looks, and now she knows the truth about both of you. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Maurice. You think money validates you now? Wait till karma hits. I show Jennifer the text. She snorts. Karma already hit, he just didn't notice who got struck. 3 weeks later, the brownstone hums with activity. Workers install track lighting in what used to be the living room, while Jennifer directs the placement of easels near the tall windows. "The Rothko reproduction goes on the far wall," I call out, unwrapping a canvas. "Natural light will wash it out anywhere else." "Since when do you know about lighting?" Jennifer asks, stepping over a coil of electrical wire. "Since I spent 2 weeks researching gallery design. YouTube University strikes again." The front door chimes. I look up to see a woman in her 50s examining the space with professional interest. "Ms. Natasha, I'm Patricia from Brooklyn Arts Weekly. We spoke about the preview." "Right on time." I wipe my hands on my jeans and shake hers. "Welcome to what will hopefully be the neighborhood's newest contemporary art space." Patricia pulls out a tablet and starts taking notes. This is quite an ambitious project, converting a residential property into a commercial gallery. What inspired the decision? "Sometimes you have to create the space you wish existed." "And you're featuring your own work exclusively?" "For the opening exhibition, yes. But I plan to showcase other emerging digital artists as well. There's incredible talent being overlooked by traditional galleries." She nods, snapping photos of the installation process. "I understand you made your fortune in cryptocurrency and NFTs. That's quite a transition from struggling artist to gallery owner." "Not really, I'm still the same artist. I just have better resources now." The door chimes again. Brian walks in, looking around with obvious amazement. "Holy shit, Nat. You actually did it." "Language," I say automatically, then catch myself. "Sorry, Mum's voice." He laughs. "Fair enough, but seriously, this place looks incredible, very professional." Patricia looks up from her tablet. "Are you family?" "Brother, Brian." He extends his hand. "I'm here for moral support and manual labour." He's being modest, I tell Patricia. Brian's been helping with the installation all week. "After work and weekends," he clarifies. "My day job doesn't pay gallery owner money." Patricia scribbles more notes. "How has your family reacted to this venture?" Brian and I exchange glances. "Mixed reviews," I say diplomatically. "That's one way to put it," Brian mutters. After Patricia leaves with promises of a feature article, Brian helps me hang the last few pieces. The afternoon light streams through the windows, illuminating canvases that chronicle my journey from anger to acceptance. "This one's new," he says, studying a painting of fractured mirrors reflecting different versions of the same face. "I painted it last week. It's called Family Portrait." Subtle. I was never good at subtle. The door chimes again. We both turn, expecting another reporter or contractor. Instead, Riley stands in the doorway, looking smaller than I remember. "Hi," she says quietly. "Hi." She's alone, I notice. No engagement ring either. "Jennifer told me about the gallery opening." "I hope it's okay that I came." "Of course it's okay." She walks slowly through the space, taking in each painting. Her eyes linger on a dark piece near the back, swirls of black and red that I painted during my angriest nights. "These are powerful," she says finally. "They're honest." "Same thing, maybe." Brian clears his throat. "I'm going to grab coffee. Anyone want anything?" "I'm good," Riley and I say simultaneously, then share a small smile. After he leaves, Riley stops in front of a canvas covered in layers of gold leaf over deep blues. "This one's beautiful. What's it called?" "After the Storm." "It feels hopeful." "It is." She turns to face me. "I left Maurice." "I heard. Are you okay?" "Getting there. You were right about everything. The ring, the company, the other women, all of it. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I needed to know." She pauses, studying the painting again. "I've been thinking about what you said." "About us never really being close." Riley. "No, let me finish. You were right. We weren't close, but I want to be, if you'll let me." I feel something tight in my chest start to loosen. "It won't be easy. There's a lot of history." "I know. but maybe we can start over, or at least start somewhere new. She walks to another painting, this one brighter, with streaks of yellow breaking through storm clouds. I'd like to buy this one. You don't have to do that. I'm not doing it to be nice. I genuinely love it. How much? I name a price that's fair, but not family discounted. She nods and pulls out her phone. Venmo okay? You're serious about this? Dead serious. I want to support what you're building here. The payment notification pings on my phone. Riley walks to the window, looking out at the street where a small crowd has gathered to peer through the glass. People are curious about the gallery. Good. Curiosity brings foot traffic. And foot traffic brings sales. Hopefully. She turns back to me. For what it's worth, I think Mum and Dad are proud of you. They're just too stubborn to admit they were wrong. Are they? Dad's been researching cryptocurrency for weeks. He keeps muttering about digital assets and market volatility. Mum bought a book about contemporary art. Really? Really? They're trying to understand what they missed. The door chimes again. A young couple enters, drawn by the window display. They move through the space with genuine interest, stopping to read the artist statements beside each piece. "Excuse me," the woman calls out. "Are these for sale?" "They are," I reply, walking over to them. "This one is stunning," she says, pointing to a canvas covered in metallic threads woven through paint. "What's the price?" I quote the figure. She doesn't flinch. "We'll take it." Riley watches from across the room as I process my first official sale. When the couple leaves with their new artwork, she's smiling. "How does it feel?" she asks. "Like validation." The money? No. The fact that someone connected with something I created, that's worth more than any cryptocurrency gain. She nods, understanding. "I should go. Let you get back to work." "Riley?" She pauses at the door. "Thank you for coming, for the painting, for trying. Thank you for giving me the chance." After she leaves, I stand alone in my gallery, surrounded by pieces of my soul made visible. The late afternoon light catches the gold leaf in After the Storm, making it shimmer like hope itself. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. "Saw the article online. Congratulations on the gallery. Some debts aren't financial. Yours will take time. Dad." I stare at the message for a long moment, then delete it without responding. Some conversations aren't ready to happen yet, but maybe, someday, they will be. The gallery buzzes with opening night energy. Wine glasses clink, heels tap against hardwood floors, and conversations flow around my paintings like water around stones. I watch from behind the reception desk as strangers examine pieces of my soul hung on walls. "Natasha, the Times critic just bought 2 pieces," Jennifer whispers, appearing at my elbow with champagne. "And that collector from Manhattan wants to discuss a commission." "Which pieces did the critic buy?" "Family Portrait and After the Storm." I almost laugh. Of course those 2. The front door opens, bringing a gust of December air and 3 familiar figures. My parents stand in the doorway, overdressed and uncomfortable, while Brian bounces on his toes behind them. "They insisted on coming," he says, appearing at my side. "I may have mentioned the Times review." Mum approaches first, her eyes scanning the crowd with the calculating gaze she usually reserves for social events. "This is quite impressive, Natasha. Very professional." "Thank you." Dad examines the price list posted near the entrance, his eyebrows climbing toward his hairline. "These prices seem substantial." "Art is an investment," I reply, echoing words he used to dismiss my work. He has the grace to look sheepish. Riley appears from the back room where she's been helping manage sales. "The red dots are multiplying," she announces, 7 pieces sold in the first hour. "Red dots?" Mum asks. "Sold stickers," Riley explains. "Gallery tradition." A woman in an elegant black dress approaches our group. "Excuse me, are you the artist?" "I am." "Your work is extraordinary, so raw and honest. I'm particularly drawn to this piece." She gestures toward a canvas dominated by dark blues and silver streaks. "The emotion is palpable." "That one's called Isolation." Perfect title, the way you've captured loneliness while still suggesting hope. It speaks to me. Is it available? I glance at the price tag. It's one of my higher-priced pieces. It is. Wonderful, I'll take it. As she walks away to complete the purchase, Dad clears his throat. That painting sold for more than I made in my first year as a lawyer. Different times, I say simply. Mum picks up one of the gallery brochures, reading my artist statement. "You write about transformation here, about finding your voice through adversity. That's what happened? We were the adversity." It's not a question. I meet her eyes, seeing something I haven't seen in years, vulnerability. Some of it, yes. She nods slowly. I read about cryptocurrency, about digital art markets. I didn't understand what you were building. You didn't try to understand. No. We didn't. The admission hangs between us like a bridge neither of us is sure how to cross. A young man with a press badge interrupts. "Ms. Natasha, I'm from Art News. Could I get a quick interview about your transition from digital to physical gallery space?" Of course. The interview lasts 20 minutes. Questions about my investment strategy, my artistic vision, my plans for the gallery's future. Professional questions that treat me like the business owner I've become. When it ends, my family is still there, clustered around Riley near the wine table. "That was impressive," Dad says as I rejoin them. "You handled those questions like a seasoned entrepreneur." I am a seasoned entrepreneur. Yes, you are. The simple acknowledgement carries more weight than any apology. Brian raises his glass. "To my sister, who turned finger paints into a financial empire." "To Natasha," Riley adds, "who proved that success looks different for everyone." Mom and Dad raise their glasses silently. It's not forgiveness, but it's recognition. Sometimes that's enough. As the evening winds down, I find myself standing on the second-floor balcony, looking down at the gallery below. The space glows with warm light, my paintings creating a narrative of pain transformed into purpose. Riley joins me, wrapping her coat tighter against the cold. "How does it feel?" she asks. "Like I finally have a room of my own." Virginia Woolf reference, very literary for an artist. "I contain multitudes," she laughs. "That you do." Below us, the last visitors examine the remaining pieces. A red dot appears on another canvas. Breaking Point, a piece I painted during my darkest days after Dad cut me off. "Do you regret it?" Riley asks. The Thanksgiving dinner, the reveal, all of it? I consider the question, watching a couple debate whether to purchase one of my smaller pieces. No, I needed them to see me clearly, all of me. And now they do? Now they're trying to. That's more than I had before. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the gallery coverage online. Proud of what you've built. Would like to visit sometime if you're open to it. Walker." I show Riley the message. She smiles. "Dad using your first name instead of Natasha is progress. Baby steps. The best kind." The gallery empties slowly, leaving behind the detritus of success, empty wine bottles, crumpled napkins, and a wall full of red dots marking sold pieces. Jennifer counts the evening's receipts while I lock the front door. 32,000 in sales, she announces. Not bad for opening night. Not bad at all. I walk through the quiet gallery, past paintings that chronicle my journey from rejection to recognition. Each piece tells part of the story: the anger, the isolation, the determination, the triumph. At the back of the gallery, After the Storm glows under its spotlight. The gold leaf catches the overhead lighting, creating the illusion of sunrise breaking through darkness. When they laughed at me over pumpkin pie, I smiled for the same reason I'm smiling now, because revenge tastes best when you serve it in their favourite dining room. But tonight, standing in my gallery surrounded by the evidence of my success, I realised something else. The sweetest revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right.
As my brother smirked across the mahogany table, clutching the title deed like a winning lottery ticket, I made a promise to myself. One day, I'd make that house mine again. But not for them. My name is Juliet, and I'm about to tell you how I destroyed my family's legacy to save my own soul. The estate lawyer's voice droned on about final distributions and asset allocations, but all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. The family home, the Victorian masterpiece my mother and I had spent 3 summers renovating together, was going to Kent, my younger brother, the golden boy who'd never lifted a paintbrush or spent a weekend stripping wallpaper until his fingers bled. The primary residence at 847 Maple Street will transfer to Kent Blake, the lawyer announced, sliding papers across the polished table, to carry on the family legacy. Dad nodded approvingly from his leather chair. It's what makes sense. Kent needs the stability. And Juliet? He gestured vaguely in my direction. Well, you married well. You don't need the responsibility. I kept my face perfectly composed, the way I'd learned during 12 years of charity galas and corporate dinners. But inside? Inside, I was screaming. That's very generous, I said quietly, my voice steady as glass. I'm sure Kent will take excellent care of it. Kent leaned back in his chair, already looking bored. At 34, he still carried himself like the high school quarterback he'd once been, all swagger and entitlement. Don't worry, Jules. I'll keep your old room exactly the same. You know, for visits. The condescension in his voice made my teeth ache. Visits. To the house where I'd held Mom's hand during her final weeks, where I'd painted every wall, refinished every floor, planted every rose in the garden. How thoughtful, I replied. Mom would have hated this. She'd always said the house should go to whoever loved it most, whoever understood its soul. But Mom had been dead for 2 years, and apparently her wishes died with her. Now, regarding the other assets, the lawyer continued, but I barely heard him. The rest was just money, stocks, bonds, a small trust fund, nothing that mattered, nothing that held memories. Any questions about the distribution? Dad asked, looking directly at me. I met his gaze without flinching. None at all. The meeting wrapped up with handshakes and hollow pleasantries. Kent pocketed the deed like it was spare change, already talking about updating the place and bringing it into the 21st century. Each word felt like a knife between my ribs. As we filed out of the lawyer's office, Kent caught my arm. Hey, you're not upset about this, are you? I mean, you've got that massive house in Westfield. What would you need with the old place? I looked down at his hand on my sleeve, then back at his face. He genuinely believed what he was saying. In his mind, I was still the trophy wife with the perfect life, the sister who'd married up and left the family struggles behind. If only he knew. Of course not, I said, gently pulling away. You're right. I have everything I need. But that was the biggest lie I'd told all day. 6 months ago, my husband Beckett had walked out, taking not just his love but nearly everything else with him. The prenup I'd signed at 25, young and stupid and so in love, had protected his assets, not mine. The Westfield house? Gone. The cars, the jewelry, the comfortable life I'd built. All of it. Gone. I was living in a studio apartment above a coffee shop, surviving on what I'd managed to hide in a separate account and the proceeds from selling my designer handbags. My family didn't know because I hadn't told them. Pride, maybe. Or the sick certainty that they'd somehow make it my fault. Standing in that parking lot, watching Kent climb into his BMW, a car I'd helped him buy 2 Christmases ago, I felt something shift inside me. The careful composure I'd maintained for years began to crack. "Juliet?" Dad's voice cut through my thoughts. "You sure you're all right? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just tired. It's been a long day." "Well, get some rest. And don't be a stranger, okay? The house will always be your home, too." The house that was no longer mine. The home I'd never be welcome in again. Not really. Not as an equal. I nodded and walked to my car, the one asset Beckett had let me keep, probably out of guilt. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Kent in my rearview mirror, already on his phone, probably telling his friends about his inheritance. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at a photo of Mom and me painting the kitchen cabinets sunshine yellow. She'd chosen that colour because it made her happy, she said, because even on the darkest days, walking into that kitchen felt like stepping into light. I traced her face with my finger and made that promise again, this time out loud. "I'm going to get it back, Mom. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to make this right." The photo smiled back at me, frozen in a moment when the world still made sense, when love mattered more than money, and family meant something more than bloodlines and legal documents. I had no idea then how perfectly the universe was about to align in my favor. 3 months after losing the house, I was selling my wedding ring at a pawn shop downtown. "Best I can do is 800, the clerk said, barely glancing at the 2-carat diamond that had once symbolized forever. "It's worth at least 3,000, I protested. He shrugged. "Not to me, it isn't. Take it or leave it." I took it. I needed groceries more than I needed memories. That's how far I'd fallen. From charity board member to haggling over jewelry with a guy who smelled like cigarettes, and regret. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks earlier, and Beckett's lawyers had been thorough. Ruthless, even. My phone buzzed as I walked out of the pawn shop. Julia, my friend from law school, who'd somehow remained loyal through everything. "Coffee?" Her text read. "I have news." We met at our usual spot, a little cafe near her office. Julia looked polished as always in her navy suit, while I wore jeans and a sweater I'd bought at Target. The contrast wasn't lost on either of us. "You look tired," she said, sliding a latte across the table. "I am tired. I'm working double shifts at the real estate office just to make rent." "How's that going?" I stirred my coffee, watching the foam swirl. "Better than expected, actually. Turns out I'm good at this. Really good." It was true. After Beckett left, I'd needed work, fast. Real estate seemed logical. I'd always had an eye for properties, and I understood what wealthy buyers wanted. What I hadn't expected was how much I'd love the hunt. Finding undervalued properties, seeing their potential, negotiating deals. It felt like solving puzzles. "I've been studying investment strategies," I continued, "watching YouTube videos, reading books. Did you know you can buy foreclosed properties for pennies on the dollar?" Julia raised an eyebrow. "Planning to become a real estate mogul?" "Maybe. I flipped a small condo last month. Made 15,000 profit." "Juliet, that's amazing!" "It's survival." I took a sip of coffee. "But You said you had news. Julia's expression shifted. She pulled out her phone and showed me a news article. Your brother's been busy. The headline read, Local man loses $200K in cryptocurrency scam. There was Kent's photo, looking sheepish outside a courthouse. Jesus, I whispered, reading the details. He borrowed against the house? Gets worse. My sources say he's been gambling too. High-stakes poker games, the kind where people break legs when you don't pay up. I stared at the article, my mind racing. How much does he owe? More than the house is worth, from what I hear. The bank's already started foreclosure proceedings. The irony was suffocating. Kent, the responsible one, the heir to the family legacy, the golden boy who was supposed to carry on the Blake name. Do Mom and Dad know? I asked. Not yet. But they will soon. The foreclosure notice gets published in the paper next week. I set down my coffee cup, my hands surprisingly steady. What happens to the house? Public auction, probably in 6 to 8 weeks. Julia leaned forward. Juliet, I know that look. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about justice. That's not justice. That's revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. Julia was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. If you're serious about this, you'll need to move fast, and you'll need to be smart about it. I opened the folder. Inside were documents about setting up investment trusts, anonymous bidding procedures, property acquisition strategies. You researched all this? I asked. I've been watching your family dynamics for years. I figured this day might come eventually. She paused. The question is, what do you want to do with it? I thought about Kent's smirk when he'd gotten the deed, about Dad's dismissive wave, about Mom's memory being trampled by their greed and stupidity. I want to buy it back. And then? I don't know yet, but I know I can't let strangers have it. Julia nodded slowly. We'd need to set up a trust. Keep your name off everything until after the sale. Can you get the money together? I've got about 50,000 saved from the flipping. I could get a loan for the rest. It's risky if the bidding goes too high. It won't. Who else wants a house in that neighborhood with that much baggage? Julia smiled for the first time since I'd sat down. You've really thought about this? I've thought about nothing else. She gathered the papers. All right, let me make some calls. We'll need to move quickly and quietly. As we left the cafe, Julia caught my arm. Juliet, are you sure about this? Once we start down this path, there's no going back. I looked at her, this woman who'd stuck by me when everyone else had written me off, who'd helped me pick up the pieces when my perfect life shattered. They gave away something that was never theirs to give, I said. Now they get to live with the consequences. That night, I sat in my studio apartment with the foreclosure documents spread across my tiny kitchen table. The house would go up for auction in exactly 43 days. I opened my laptop and started researching auction procedures, bidding strategies, property values in the neighborhood. By morning, I had a plan. Kent had no idea what was coming. None of them did. But they were about to learn that underestimating Juliet Blake was the biggest mistake they'd ever made. The trust paperwork was finalized on a Tuesday. By Thursday, I was parked across the street from my childhood home, watching Kent pace the front porch while screaming into his phone. No, you don't understand. His voice carried across the quiet neighborhood. I just need 2 more weeks. The crypto market's about to turn around. I rolled down my window slightly, straining to hear. "What do you mean the house is already scheduled for auction? That's impossible." Julia had done her homework. The Maple Street Investment Trust was registered in Delaware, completely anonymous. Even if Kent hired a private investigator, they'd hit a wall of legal paperwork that would take months to untangle. My phone buzzed. Text from Julia. "Auction confirmed for next Friday, 10 a.m. You ready for this?" I typed back, "More than ready." That weekend, I drove past the house again. This time both my parents' cars were in the driveway. Through the living room window, I could see them gesturing wildly. Kent sat slumped in Dad's old recliner, head in his hands. The foreclosure notice had been published in the paper that morning. By now, the whole neighborhood knew. Monday morning, I was showing a client a downtown condo when my phone rang. Mom. "I'm sorry. I need to take this," I told my client, stepping into the hallway. "Juliet, honey, we need to talk." Mom's voice was strained, barely controlled. "What's wrong?" "It's Kent. There's been a situation with the house." I let the silence stretch, waiting. "The bank is foreclosing. Some kind of gambling debts. We had no idea he'd been borrowing against the property." "Oh my God, Mom. I'm so sorry." "We're meeting with lawyers, trying to figure out options, but the auction is this Friday, and we just don't have the money to stop it." "How much would you need?" "Nearly 400,000. We've already mortgaged everything else trying to help him." I closed my eyes, picturing Mom's face. The desperation in her voice was real, and for a moment, I almost wavered. "I wish I could help," I said, "but after the divorce, I'm barely keeping my head above water." "Of course, sweetheart. I wouldn't ask. I needed to tell someone who'd understand what this house means." After she hung up, I stood in that hallway for 5 minutes, staring at my phone. My client eventually came looking for me. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Family drama," I said, forcing a smile. "Shall we continue the tour?" The auction was held on the courthouse steps. I arrived early, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, parking 3 blocks away. About 20 people had gathered, mostly investors and curiosity seekers. Lawrence, the auctioneer, was a thin man with a clipboard and a microphone that squealed feedback every few minutes. "Next property, 847 Maple Street," he announced. "Victorian home, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Starting bid is 200,000. I spotted Kent near the back of the crowd, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Dad stood beside him, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Mom was nowhere to be seen. 200,000. Do I hear 210? A man in a suit raised his hand. 210. 220. Lawrence scanned the crowd. I waited, let them bid it up a little. 230. 240. At 260, only 3 bidders remained. The man in the suit, an older woman with a contractor's clipboard, and me. 270, I called out, my voice steady. Kent's head snapped around, searching the crowd, but with my hat and sunglasses, I was just another face. 280, the woman counted. The man in the suit shook his head and stepped back. 290, I said. The woman hesitated, then raised her hand. 300. I could see Kent whispering frantically to Dad, pointing at the bidders. Dad was shaking his head, his face red with frustration. 320, I called out. The woman looked at her clipboard, calculating. After a long moment, she stepped back too. 320 going once, Lawrence announced. Going twice. Kent broke from the crowd, pushing forward. Wait, this is my house. You can't just... Sir, please step back, Lawrence said firmly. This is a legal proceeding. 320 going 3 times, sold to bidder number 7. I walked forward, my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Lawrence handed me the paperwork. Congratulations, he said. The property transfers to the Maple Street Investment Trust. I signed the documents with a steady hand, then turned to walk away. As I passed Kent, our eyes met for just a moment. He looked confused, desperate, broken. Excuse me? He called after me. Are you planning to flip this property? I stopped, turned back. I haven't decided yet. It's just, this was my family's home. If you're looking to sell, maybe we could work something out. I studied his face, the same face that had smirked at me across the lawyer's table 6 months ago. I'll be in touch, I said. As I walked back to my car, I heard Dad's voice behind me. Who the hell was that? I drove home in silence, the deed sitting on my passenger seat. That night, I called Julia. It's done, I said. How do you feel? I looked around my tiny studio apartment, then at the deed to my childhood home. Like I'm finally ready to go home. The key turned in the lock, like it had been waiting for me. I stood in the doorway of 847 Maple Street for the first time in 2 years, breathing in the familiar scent of old wood and Mom's lavender sachets. The house felt different, emptier somehow, like it had been holding its breath. Hello, old friend, I whispered, stepping inside. The hardwood floors Mom and I had refinished still gleamed, despite Kent's neglect. But the walls told a different story. He'd painted over my careful color choices with generic beige. The kitchen where Mom had taught me to make her famous apple pie was now stark white, sterile, and cold. I walked through each room, cataloguing the damage. Kent had removed most of Mom's furniture, probably sold it to pay his debts. The built-in bookshelves I'd spent a summer installing were empty. Even the curtains were gone. In Mom's old bedroom, I found the only thing Kent had left behind, a framed photo of our family from Christmas 5 years ago. We all looked so happy, so normal. I picked it up, studying our faces. What would you think of all this, Mom? I asked the empty room. My phone rang. Julia. How's the house? She asked. Sad, but salvageable. I walked to the window, looking out at the garden Mom had loved. The roses were overgrown, the vegetable patch choked with weeds. It needs work, but the bones are good. What's the plan? I'm not sure yet. I just needed to be here first, you know? Take your time. You've got all the time in the world now. After Julia hung up, I continued my tour. The basement still held Mom's old paint cans and gardening tools. The attic was full of boxes Kent hadn't bothered to go through. Probably didn't even know were there. I was coming back downstairs when I heard voices outside. Through the front window, I saw a woman sitting on my porch steps. She looked young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her clothes were worn, but clean. I opened the front door. Can I help you? She jumped up, startled. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone was here. The house has been empty for weeks. It's okay. I'm the new owner. What's your name? Esme. She shifted nervously. I've been staying in the park down the street, and sometimes I come here to sit. The porch gets good morning sun, and it feels safe. I looked at her more closely. Her backpack was stuffed full, and she had that careful alertness of someone who'd learned to sleep with one eye open. Are you homeless? I asked gently. Her cheeks flushed. Temporarily displaced. I'm working on getting back on my feet. What happened? Esme hesitated, then sat back down on the steps. My ex-husband. He got violent, so I left. But he had all the money, all the credit cards in his name. I've been trying to save up for a deposit on an apartment, but it's hard when you're spending everything on food and laundry. I sat down beside her. How long have you been on the street? 3 months. There's a waiting list for the women's shelter across town, but it's 6 months long. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the neighborhood wake up. Mrs. Patterson from next door was walking her ancient beagle. The mailman waved as he passed. This used to be my family's house, I said finally. Really? It's beautiful. Even empty, you can tell it was loved. My mother and I renovated it together. Every room has a story. Esme smiled. That's nice. Having a place that's really yours, I mean. I've never had that. Something clicked in my mind, an idea so perfect, so right, that it took my breath away. Esme, what if I told you I was thinking about turning this house into a place where women like you could stay, not just temporarily, but long enough to really get back on their feet? Her eyes widened. Like a shelter? More than that. A place where you could have your own room, learn job skills, save money. A place that treats you like a person, not a problem to be managed. That would be incredible. But why would you do that? I looked at the house, seeing it with new eyes, not as the family legacy that had been stolen from me, but as something bigger, something Mom would have loved. Because everyone deserves a second chance, I said, and because this house was meant to help people. Esme was quiet for a long moment. Would you really do that? I think I would, but I'd need help, someone who understands what women in your situation actually need. I could help, she said quickly. I mean, if you're serious. I know a lot of women who are struggling, and I'm good at organizing things, managing schedules. I stood up, brushing off my jeans. Want to see the inside? Help me figure out how to make this work? Esme's face lit up. Really? Really? But first, are you hungry? There's a diner down the street that makes amazing pancakes. As we walked toward town, Esme chattering excitedly about room layouts and safety protocols, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Purpose. Kent had wanted to carry on the family legacy. Well, now he'd get his wish, just not the way he'd imagined. That evening, I called Julia again. I know what I'm doing with the house, I said. Oh. I'm turning it into a women's shelter, a place where they can rebuild their lives. Julia was quiet for a moment. That's actually brilliant, and it'll drive your family absolutely insane. That's just a bonus, I said, smiling. The real reason is it's what Mom would have wanted. When do we start? Tomorrow. I've got a lot of work to do. The call came at 7 in the morning, 3 weeks into renovations. Juliet, we need to talk. Mom's voice was tight, controlled. Can you meet us for coffee this morning? I was standing in what used to be the formal dining room, watching contractors install safety locks on the windows. Esme was in the kitchen, sketching out meal plans for future residents. I'm pretty busy today, Mom. Can we do this over the phone? No. This is important. The Sunrise Cafe on Main Street. 1 hour. She hung up before I could respond. I found them at a corner table, both looking like they'd aged 5 years in the past month. Dad's hair was grayer. Mom's hands shook slightly as she stirred her coffee. You look tired, I said, sliding into the booth across from them. We are tired, Dad replied. We've been dealing with Kent's mess for weeks. The lawyers, the creditors, the shame of it all. Mom leaned forward. But that's not why we asked you here. We heard something interesting yesterday. Oh. Margaret Patterson called. She said there's been construction activity at the house. Trucks, workers, people coming and going. I sipped my coffee, saying nothing. She also said she saw you there, Dad continued, multiple times, with keys. The moment had arrived. I'd been preparing for this conversation for weeks, but my heart still hammered against my ribs. That's right, I said simply. Mom's face went white. Juliet, please tell me you didn't... I bought it back, at the auction. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Dad's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as he set it down. You bought our family home? His voice was barely controlled. I bought the house that was being foreclosed on, yes. But why didn't you tell us? Mom's voice cracked. We could have worked something out. Kept it in the family properly. Like you kept it in the family when you gave it to Kent? When you decided I didn't need it because I'd married well? Dad's face flushed red. That's different. Kent was supposed to what? Gamble it away, because that's exactly what he did. We didn't know about his problems, Mom said desperately. If we had known. You would have what? Given it to me instead. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. We both know that's not true. Mom reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled back. Sweetheart, I know you're hurt, but this is still our family home. Surely you can understand why we're upset. I understand perfectly. You're upset because you lost control. Dad slammed his palm on the table, making the silverware jump. Don't you dare speak to your mother that way. We raised you better than this. You raised me to be grateful for scraps, to smile and nod while you gave away everything I'd worked for. The house belongs with family, Mom said, tears starting to fall. Not with strangers. You're right. It does belong with family, but not this family. Not anymore. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos I'd taken that morning. The freshly painted bedrooms, the new furniture being delivered, the sign being installed by the front door. Haven't house? Dad read aloud. A Blake legacy reimagined. His voice was hollow. What is this? It's a women's shelter, a place where women who've been abandoned, abused, or forgotten can rebuild their lives. Mom stared at the photos, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. You turned our family home into a homeless shelter? Dad's voice rose, drawing stares from other customers. I turned an empty house into something useful, something that helps people. This is insane, Mom whispered. This is cruel. What's cruel is giving someone's inheritance to their brother because you think he deserves it more. What's cruel is never once calling to check how I was doing after my divorce. We thought you were fine, Mom protested. You never said. I never said because you never asked. You assumed I was fine because it was convenient to assume that. Dad leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a stranger. So, this is revenge. You're destroying our family legacy out of spite? I'm not destroying anything. I'm transforming it. Mom always said this house should help people. Now it will. Your mother meant help family. Dad snapped. Maybe family should have helped me when I needed it. Mom was crying openly now. Please, Juliet, we can fix this. We can work together. You could move back in, manage the property. We could make this right. It's too late for that. It's never too late, she pleaded. We're your parents. We love you. I stood up, leaving money on the table for my untouched coffee. If you loved me, You would have given me the house in the first place. If you loved me, you would have called when my marriage fell apart. If you loved me, you wouldn't be sitting here trying to guilt me into giving up the one thing I've managed to rebuild. Where are you going? Mom called after me. Home, to my house, to finish what I started. I was almost to the door when Dad's voice stopped me. We're ashamed of you. I turned back, looking at these two people who'd raised me, who'd shaped me, who'd ultimately failed me when it mattered most. No, I said quietly. You're ashamed you lost your power over me. There's a difference. Outside, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands shaking. My phone buzzed with a text from Esme. The new bed's arrived. This place is really starting to feel like home. I smiled through my tears and drove back to Maple Street, back to the house that was finally, truly mine. The phone call started that afternoon. Juliet, this is your Aunt Carol. I just heard what you've done with the family house and I am appalled. I was in the kitchen, helping Esme organize donated supplies, when my phone rang for the 5th time in 2 hours. Hi, Aunt Carol. How could you do this to your parents? To Kent? That boy is devastated. Kent is 34 years old. He's not a boy. Don't get smart with me, young lady. Your uncle and I are disgusted by this vindictive behavior. I put the phone on speaker so Esme could hear. She raised her eyebrows and continued sorting canned goods. I'm helping women get back on their feet. How is that vindictive? You know exactly what you're doing. You're punishing your family because you didn't get your way. I'm using my property to help people who need it. Your property? That house has been in our family for 3 generations. And now it's helping people who actually need help, instead of sitting empty while someone gambles away their inheritance. Aunt Carol hung up on me. Wow, Esme said. Your family's really upset about this. They'll get over it. But they didn't get over it. The calls kept coming. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, family friends, even my high school guidance counselor somehow got my number. By evening, I'd turned off my phone. The next morning, I posted the first photo on social media. Just a simple shot of the front porch with the new sign, Haven House, opening soon. The caption read, Sometimes the best way to honor a family legacy is to transform it into something that actually helps people. Coming soon, a safe space for women rebuilding their lives. Second chances, community, hope. Within hours, the post had dozens of likes and supportive comments, but it also drew attention I wasn't expecting. I was painting the last bedroom when Esme called up the stairs. Juliet, there's a reporter here. I found a young woman with a notebook standing on my front porch, next to a photographer. Ms. Blake, I'm Sarah from the County Herald. We'd love to do a story about your shelter project. I'm not really ready for press yet. We heard this used to be your family home. That's such an interesting angle, turning a personal space into a community resource. Before I could respond, a car pulled up to the curb. Kent got out, looking haggard and desperate. Perfect timing, Sarah murmured, signaling her photographer. Juliet, Kent called out, jogging toward the porch. We need to talk. I'm sorry, but this isn't a good time, I told the reporter. Is that your brother? Sarah asked. The one who lost the house? Kent reached the porch, breathing hard. He looked terrible, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. Jules, please, just 5 minutes. Kent, there are reporters here? He glanced at Sarah and her photographer, then back at me. I don't care. I need to talk to you. Maybe we should do this privately, I said, but Sarah was already taking notes. "This is my family's house," Kent said, his voice rising. "You can't just steal it and turn it into some charity project." "I didn't steal anything. I bought it at a legal auction." "You knew I was in trouble. You could have helped me save it." The photographer's camera clicked rapidly. "Like you helped me when Beckett left?" I asked. "Oh, wait, you didn't even know because none of you bothered to check on me." "That's different." "How is it different?" Kent ran his hands through his hair, looking around wildly. "Because I'm family. Because this house means something." "It means something to me, too. That's why I'm making sure it actually helps people instead of being gambled away." "You're destroying everything Mom built." "Mom built a home full of love and acceptance. I'm continuing that legacy." "By turning it into a homeless shelter?" "By turning it into a place where women can rebuild their lives. Women like Esme here, who escaped an abusive marriage and just needed someone to believe in her." Esme stepped forward. "I was living in the park before Juliet helped me. Now I have a safe place to sleep and a chance to start over." Kent looked at Esme like he was seeing her for the first time. This is insane." "What's insane is thinking you deserve this house more than I did just because you're a man." "That's not why." "Isn't it? Dad said I didn't need the responsibility because I'd married well. You got it because you were supposed to carry on the family name." "Well, congratulations, Kent. You carried it right into bankruptcy court." Kent's face crumpled. "I lost everything, Jules. Everything. I don't have anywhere to go." For a moment I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "You had everything handed to you your entire life. The house, the family business connections, Mom and Dad's unconditional support. And you threw it all away." "I made mistakes." "You made choices, and now you get to live with them." Kent looked around desperately, at the reporters, at Esme, at the house he'd lost. "I gave you everything," he said, his voice breaking. I met his eyes, remembering every slight, every dismissal, every time I'd been overlooked in favor of the golden boy. "Now, you know how it feels?" Kent stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked back to his car without another word. Sarah scribbled furiously in her notebook. "This is quite a story. When can we schedule a proper interview?" "Next week," I said, "after we're officially open." As the reporters left, Esme touched my arm. "Are you okay?" That looked hard. "It was necessary," I said, watching Kent's car disappear around the corner. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You've destroyed this family. I hope you're happy." I deleted it and went back to painting. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was scheduled for 10 in the morning. By 9:30, nearly 50 people had gathered on the front lawn. "I can't believe this many people came," Esme whispered, adjusting the microphone we'd borrowed from the community center. "Small towns love a good story," I replied, smoothing my navy dress, especially one about second chances. The mayor was there, along with several city council members, local business owners who'd donated supplies, volunteers who'd helped with renovations. Even some of my old real estate clients had shown up. Sarah from the Herald was back, this time with a bigger camera crew. The story had been picked up by regional news outlets after her article ran. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor began, "we're here today to celebrate the opening of Haven House, a remarkable example of turning personal tragedy into community triumph." I stepped up to the microphone, my hands surprisingly steady. 3 months ago, this house was empty and forgotten. Today, it's a home again, not just for the women who'll live here, but for all of us who believe everyone deserves a second chance. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. I want to introduce you to Esme, who'll be our resident coordinator. She's going to tell you what Haven House really means. Esme approached the microphone nervously, then seemed to find her strength. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in my car, she began. My husband had convinced me I was worthless, that no one would ever help me. I believed him. The crowd grew quiet. But Juliet saw something different. She saw potential where everyone else saw a problem. She gave me not just a room, but a purpose. Esme's voice grew stronger. Haven House isn't just about shelter. It's about believing in yourself again. Tears pricked my eyes as the crowd erupted in genuine applause. Now, I said, returning to the microphone, let's officially open Haven House. I lifted the scissors to cut the blue ribbon stretched across the front door. The cameras clicked, people cheered, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. Then I saw the car. Dad's silver sedan pulled up to the curb, and both my parents got out. They looked older, more fragile than they had at the coffee shop. Mom clutched Dad's arm as they approached the crowd. The celebration continued around us, but I felt frozen. Several people noticed my parents and began whispering. Juliet! Mom called out, pushing through the crowd. We need to see this! The mayor paused mid-sentence. Sarah's photographer swiveled toward the commotion. Mom, Dad, this isn't the time. No, it's exactly the time, Dad said, his voice carrying across the lawn. We need to see what you've done to our family home. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Esme moved closer to me, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed. Would you like a tour? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Yes, Mom said. We would. I led them through the front door, the crowd following at a respectful distance. The foyer gleamed with fresh paint and new furniture. Family photos had been replaced with inspirational quotes and community resources. This was your grandmother's sitting room, Mom whispered, staring at what was now a counseling office. Now it's where women can get help finding jobs and housing, I replied. We moved through the house. The formal dining room had become a computer lab. The library was now a children's playroom for residents' kids. Mom's old bedroom was divided into 2 smaller rooms, each with a single bed and dresser. You've destroyed it, Dad said finally, standing in what used to be his den. You've erased our entire history. I've repurposed it, given it new life. This isn't what your mother would have wanted, he continued, his voice rising. The crowd in the hallway grew quiet, straining to hear. A place that helps women start over. Sounds exactly like her, I said. She meant family, Mom burst out. She wanted this house to stay in the family. Then maybe the family should have acted like family. We made one mistake. You made a choice. You chose Kent over me. You chose tradition over fairness. You chose your comfort over my feelings. Dad stepped closer, his face red with anger. We gave you everything growing up. We supported your marriage, your choices. You supported the version of me that made you comfortable, the trophy wife who smiled and stayed quiet. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my dreams, my goals? When did you ever see me as more than Kent's sister or Beckett's wife? Mom was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. We're your parents. We love you. You love the idea of me, The version that doesn't challenge you or make you uncomfortable. The crowd had grown completely silent. Even the reporters had stopped taking notes. We were wrong, Mom said suddenly, her voice breaking. We should have given you the house. We should have seen how much it meant to you. The admission hung in the air like smoke. That's why I had to take it, I said quietly. Dad looked around the transformed house, at the women's faces watching from doorways, at the signs of new life everywhere. You've made something beautiful from the ashes, he said finally. I hope someday you can forgive us. He turned and walked toward the front door. Mom hesitated, looking back at me one more time. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Your mother would be proud too. Then they were gone, leaving me standing in the hallway surrounded by strangers who'd witnessed the most painful conversation of my life. Esme squeezed my hand. Are you okay? I looked around at the house that was finally, truly mine. At the women who would call it home. At the future we were building from the ruins of the past. I'm perfect, I said. And for the first time in years, I meant it. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, tucked between utility bills and donation acknowledgements. No return address, just my name written in Mom's careful script. I found it while sorting mail in the kitchen, where Esme was teaching 3 residents how to make her grandmother's cornbread recipe. The house buzzed with the comfortable chaos of women rebuilding their lives, children's laughter from the playroom, the hum of the washing machine, someone practicing job interview questions in the living room. Everything okay? Esme asked, noticing me staring at the envelope. Just family stuff, I said, slipping it into my pocket. That evening, after the residents had settled into their routines, I sat on the front porch swing Mom and I had hung together 15 years ago. The neighborhood was quiet, porch lights glowing like fireflies. I opened the letter. Juliet. I don't expect you to respond to this. I'm not even sure I deserve to write it. But there are things I need to say, even if you never want to hear from me again. You were right about everything. We failed you in ways I'm only beginning to understand. When your father and I decided to give Kent the house, we told ourselves we were being practical. Kent needed stability, and you had Beckett. But the truth is, we were being cowards. It was easier to give Kent what he expected than to challenge the way we'd always done things. It was easier to assume you were fine than to ask if you needed help. It was easier to maintain the status quo than to admit we'd raised you to be strong and then punished you for that strength. I drove by the house yesterday. I saw Maria hanging laundry in the backyard, the same spot where I used to hang yours and Kent's clothes when you were small. I saw children playing in the garden where you and I planted those roses. I saw women sitting on the porch, talking and laughing the way neighbors used to do. You made something beautiful from the ashes. I hope someday you can forgive us. I won't contact you again unless you want me to, but I needed you to know. You didn't take the house from us. You saved it. Love. Mom. I folded the letter and sat in the gathering darkness, listening to the sounds of home around me. Juliet? A small voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see Lily, Maria's 6-year-old daughter, peeking through the screen door. What's up, sweetheart? Mama says to ask if you want some cookies. We made chocolate chip. I'd love some cookies. Lily disappeared and returned with a paper plate piled high with slightly lopsided cookies. She climbed onto the swing beside me. Are you sad? She asked, studying my face with the directness only children possess. A little, but It's okay to be sad sometimes. Mama says you saved us. Is that true? I looked at this little girl who'd arrived 3 weeks ago with nothing but a stuffed rabbit and trust issues. Now she was making cookies and asking questions and sleeping through the night without nightmares. I think maybe we saved each other, I said. That's what Mama says too. We ate cookies in comfortable silence, watching fireflies blink in the garden. The next morning, I was in my office, Mom's old sewing room, when Esme knocked. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Says he's your brother." I found Kent standing awkwardly in the foyer, holding a small potted plant. He looked different, cleaner, healthier, like he'd been sleeping and eating regularly. "Hi, Jules." "Kent. I brought this for the house. It's a peace lily. The lady at the garden centre said they're good for new beginnings." I accepted the plant, surprised by the gesture. "I'm in a program now," he said. "Gambling addiction, financial counselling, the whole thing. Part of it is making amends to people I've hurt." "Okay. I know I can't undo what I did. I know I lost something that was never really mine to lose, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to be better." "That's good, Kent. I'm glad you're getting help." He looked around the transformed foyer, taking in the bulletin board full of job postings and success stories, the children's artwork taped to the walls. "This is really something," he said, "what you've built here." "It's what the house was meant to be." "Yeah, I think you're right." He paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have said that a long time ago." After he left, I placed the peace lily on the kitchen windowsill, next to the herbs Esme had been growing. That afternoon, I was helping Carmen practice for her nursing school interview when my phone rang. Julia. "Turn on Channel 7, she said. "You're going to want to see this." I found the remote and switched to the local news. There was Haven House on screen, and there was me, standing on the front porch during the ribbon cutting. What started as one woman's personal mission has become a model for community-based solutions to homelessness, the anchor was saying. Haven House has already helped 12 women transition to independent living, and there's a waiting list of organizations hoping to replicate their success. The segment showed interviews with residents, shots of the computer lab and job training programs, footage of children playing in the backyard. "Pretty amazing what you've accomplished," Carmen said, squeezing my shoulder. I looked around the living room, at Carmen studying her textbooks, at Esme coordinating volunteer schedules, at the photos on the mantel showing graduation ceremonies and job celebrations and families reunited. "We've accomplished," I corrected, "all of us together." That evening, I sat on the porch swing again, Mom's letter in my lap. The house hummed with life around me. Dinner preparations, homework help, the gentle rhythm of women supporting each other through the hard work of starting over. I pulled out my phone and typed a simple text to the number I'd never deleted. "Thank you for the letter. The house is exactly where it needs to be." The response came quickly. "I love you. I'm proud of you. Always." I placed the letter on the mantel next to the photos of our residents' achievements, then walked through the house, turning off lights and checking locks. In the kitchen, tomorrow's breakfast supplies were already laid out. In the living room, someone had left a thank you note on the coffee table. In the playroom, toys were neatly arranged for another day of children's laughter. This was home, not the house I'd grown up in, but the home I'd chosen to create. Not the legacy I'd inherited, but the one I'd built with my own hands. I didn't take back the house for them. I took it back for every woman who'd ever been told she didn't need it, Didn't deserve it. Couldn't handle it. I took it back for all of us.
The rusted door handle came off in my hand the first time I tried to open it. Standing there in the gravel driveway, holding a piece of metal that had probably been painted white sometime in the Clinton administration, I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I set my single suitcase down and jimmied the door open with my shoulder. My name is Caitlin, and 3 weeks ago I was living in a 4-bedroom colonial with granite countertops and a husband who thought my ribs made excellent punching bags. Today, I was moving into my dead grandmother's trailer, and honestly, the trailer felt safer. Jesus, Kate, you're really doing this. I turned to see my sister Teresa climbing out of her BMW, picking her way across the gravel in heels that cost more than most people's rent. She held her phone up, recording. "For your social media?" I asked. "For evidence that you've completely lost it." She panned the camera across the trailer's peeling siding and sagging awning. "This is what rock bottom looks like, people." I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the door. "Thanks for the moving help." "I'm serious, Kate. You can't live here. It's embarrassing." "Embarrassing for who?" "For all of us. What are people going to think when they find out my sister is living in a trailer park?" I paused in the doorway. 3 weeks ago, Teresa had sat at her dining room table during Thanksgiving dinner and told the entire family how I was finally getting what I deserved for leaving Daryl. She'd said it while carving turkey, like she was discussing the weather. "I don't know, Teresa. What did people think when they found out your sister's husband put her in the hospital twice?" Her phone lowered. "That's different." "How?" "Because you went back to him." "Both times." The words hit like a slap, but I kept my face neutral. Teresa had perfected the art of weaponizing truth. Yes, I'd gone back to Daryl. Yes, I'd dropped the charges. Yes, I'd spent 2 years making excuses for bruises and accidents. "Well, I'm not going back this time." "No, you're just living in a tin can instead." She gestured at the trailer. "Grandma was senile at the end, Kate." "This place is falling apart." I thought about Grandma Zoe in her final weeks, how sharp her eyes had been when she'd pulled me aside after my last visit, how she'd gripped my hand and said, "Some gifts come wrapped in ugly paper, sweetheart. Don't let them fool you." Maybe falling apart is exactly where I need to be right now. Teresa snorted. "Always so dramatic. You know what your problem is? You think suffering makes you special. And you think money makes you decent." Her face flushed. "At least I don't air my dirty laundry for everyone to see." "No, you just post videos of your sister's breakdown for Instagram likes." She was still recording. I could see the red light blinking. "This isn't a breakdown, Kate. This is a choice. A stupid, stubborn choice that's going to drag our whole family down with you." I stepped inside the trailer and turned back to face her. The interior smelled like lavender and old books, exactly like Grandma always had. For the first time in months, my shoulders relaxed. "Then I guess you better stay far away from me." I closed the door, leaving Teresa standing in the gravel with her phone and her judgment. The trailer was small but clean. Grandma had kept it immaculate right up until the end. The kitchen was barely big enough for one person. The living room held a single recliner and a TV from the early 2000s, and the bedroom was just large enough for a twin bed and a dresser. It was perfect. I sat on the bed and pulled out my phone. 17 missed calls from Daryl, 43 text messages ranging from apologies to threats. I blocked his number and deleted the messages without reading them. Then I opened the drawer of the bedside table, looking for anything Grandma might have left behind. Inside was a small wooden box I'd never seen before, along with a note in her careful handwriting. "For when you're ready to stop running and start building. Love, Grandma." I was about to open the box when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Caitlin, this is Wayne, your grandmother's lawyer. We need to meet, now." His voice was tight, urgent. "She left everything to you." I stared at the wooden box in my hands, remembering Grandma's last words to me. Some gifts come wrapped in ugly paper. Outside, I could hear Teresa's BMW pulling away, gravel crunching under her tires as she fled the scene of my supposed humiliation. If only she knew. The wooden box contained a single key and another note. Trust fund access key. Wayne has the details. Use it wisely. Grandma. I stared at it for a full minute before Wayne called again. Caitlin, I need you to come to my office. Today. There are things about your grandmother's estate that, well, they're complicated. How complicated? The kind that changes everything. Can you be here in an hour? I drove to Wayne's office in my beat-up Honda, the key burning a hole in my pocket. He'd been Grandma's lawyer for 30 years, a quiet man with kind eyes who'd always treated me like I mattered. Sit down, Caitlin. He pulled out a thick folder. Your grandmother was a very smart woman, smarter than any of us realized. What do you mean? She bought land, lots of it. Starting in the 1970s, she purchased parcels around the county whenever she had extra money. Small plots, nothing that looked valuable at the time. My heart started racing. And now? Now the city wants to build a new shopping complex. They've been quietly buying up property in that area for 2 years. He slid a paper across the desk. Your grandmother's land is worth $2.9 million. I gripped the arms of my chair. What? She put it all in a trust, for you. Only you. He leaned forward. Caitlin, she knew about Daryl. She knew about your family's attitudes. She planned this. The room spun. She never said anything. She made me promise to wait until after her funeral. She wanted to see how everyone treated you first. Wayne's jaw tightened. I think she got her answer at Thanksgiving. 3 days later, Wayne called a family meeting to read the will. I sat in the back corner of his conference room, watching my family file in. Teresa wore her funeral black, already assuming the role of grieving granddaughter and primary heir. My Aunt Malia clutched a tissue, dabbing at dry eyes. My cousin Zoe slipped in quietly, nodding at me before taking a seat. Thank you all for coming, Wayne began. Zoe Wells left very specific instructions for the distribution of her estate. Teresa straightened in her chair, smoothing her skirt. She'd probably already spent the inheritance in her head. The trailer and its contents go to Caitlin. Teresa rolled her eyes. Of course she gets the junk. The savings account, approximately $15,000, is to be divided equally among all grandchildren. Malia nodded approvingly. That seems fair. Wayne cleared his throat. However, the bulk of the estate, including all real property holdings and the associated trust fund, goes entirely to Caitlin. The room went silent. I'm sorry, what? Teresa's voice was sharp. Your grandmother owned significant property holdings worth approximately $2.9 million. All of it goes to Caitlin. Malia's tissue fluttered to the floor. That's impossible. I have all the documentation here. Wayne spread papers across the table. Purchased over 40 years, held in trust, with Caitlin as the sole beneficiary. Teresa shot to her feet. This is insane! Grandma was confused at the end. She didn't know what she was doing. She was completely lucid when she updated this will 6 months ago, Wayne said calmly. I have medical documentation to support her mental competency. 6 months ago? Malia's voice cracked. But she never said anything. I finally spoke. She told me. Every head turned toward me. She told me about the trust 3 weeks before she died. Made me promise not to tell anyone. Teresa's face went white, then red. You knew? You've been sitting there acting like you're broke while you knew you were inheriting millions? I've been sitting here listening to you all talk about how pathetic I am for living in that trailer. This is fraud. Teresa slammed her hand on the table. She manipulated a dying old woman. Wayne's voice turned ice cold. I'd be very careful about making accusations like that, Teresa, especially since Caitlin has already exercised her rights as trustee. The room went dead quiet. "What does that mean?" Malia whispered. Wayne looked at me. I nodded. "It means she sold the land 2 weeks ago. The transaction closed yesterday." Teresa's mouth fell open. "You sold it? Already?" "The developers approached me right after Grandma's funeral. They'd been waiting for the property to change hands." I kept my voice steady. "I signed the papers last Tuesday." "You can't do that." Teresa was screaming now. "That money belongs to all of us." "Actually, it belongs to Caitlin," Wayne said. "Legally and completely." Malia stood up shakily. "This isn't over. We'll contest the will. You can try, but you'll lose, and it'll cost you everything you have in legal fees." Teresa pulled out her phone, fingers flying over the screen. "We'll see about that." I stood up and walked toward the door. "Meeting's over?" Wayne nodded. "Congratulations, Caitlin. Your grandmother would be proud." As I reached for the door handle, my phone buzzed with a text from Teresa. "We can fix this, or we can ruin you." I smiled and deleted it without responding. Outside in the parking lot, I sat in my Honda and finally let myself feel it. Not the money, the vindication. Grandma had seen everything. She'd known exactly who they were. And she'd chosen me anyway. The photos showed up on Facebook 3 days later. Teresa had taken them from every unflattering angle she could find. The rusted siding, the cracked steps, the weeds growing through the gravel. The caption read, "When you inherit millions but still choose to live like this, some people just can't handle success." Trailer trash. Family embarrassment. Within hours, it had 47 shares and counting. My phone started buzzing with notifications. Old high school classmates commenting with crying laughing emojis, distant relatives chiming in with fake concern. Is Caitlin okay? This is so sad. Someone should help her. I was sitting on my front steps watching the comments roll in when a car pulled up. My cousin Zoe got out, holding 2 coffee cups. "Figured you might need this." She handed me one and sat down beside me. "You saw the post?" Everyone saw the post. "Teresa's really going for the throat this time." I sipped the coffee. It was good, real coffee, not the instant stuff I'd been drinking. "She's just getting started." "You know she's been calling people, right? Telling them you manipulated Grandma, that you're mentally unstable from the divorce." "And what are people saying?" Zoe was quiet for a moment. "Some believe her. Others remember how she treated you at Thanksgiving." "What do you remember about Thanksgiving?" "I remember you sitting there while she told everyone you deserved what Daryl did to you. I remember her laughing when you left early." Zoe turned to face me. "I also remember thinking someone should have said something. But nobody did. No, nobody did." We sat in comfortable silence, watching cars drive past. A few slowed down, passengers craning their necks to get a look at the infamous trailer. "Zoe, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "If you had $2.9 million, what would you do with it?" She laughed. "Buy a house, pay off my student loans, travel maybe." "What if you wanted to help people?" "Like charity?" "Like really help people. People who are stuck the way I was stuck." Zoe studied my face. "You're planning something." "I'm thinking about it." "Something that's going to make Teresa even madder?" "Probably." She grinned. "Good. She's had it coming for years." That evening, I drove to Grandma's grave. The headstone was simple granite, just her name and dates. I sat cross-legged on the grass beside it. "They're trying to destroy me, Grandma, just like you said they would." The wind rustled through the oak tree overhead. "But I'm not breaking, I promise you that." I'm not breaking. I pulled out my phone and started researching. Domestic violence shelters in our county, funding requirements, real estate listings for buildings that could be converted. By the time the sun set, I had a plan. The next morning, I called Wayne. I want to buy a building, something big enough for a women's shelter. That's a wonderful idea, Caitlin. Do you have a property in mind? The old Morrison warehouse on 5th Street. It's been empty for 2 years. That's a substantial investment. Are you sure? I'm sure. Can you handle the purchase quietly? Of course. Any particular reason for the discretion? I want it to be a surprise. 3 days later, Wayne called back. The warehouse is yours. The seller was motivated. You got it for $800,000. Perfect. Now I need contractors, the best ones you know. Caitlin, this is going to be expensive. A full renovation? Money isn't the problem anymore, Wayne. Time is. While I was meeting with architects and contractors, Teresa's campaign against me intensified. She'd started a private Facebook group called Concerned Family Members, where she posted daily updates about my deteriorating mental state. My phone rang constantly with calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, all wanting to check on me and offering unsolicited advice about getting help. The worst part was Ruby, Teresa's 19-year-old daughter. She'd made a TikTok video standing outside the trailer, explaining to her followers how her crazy aunt was wasting millions while living in squalor. It went viral locally, 15,000 views and climbing, but not everyone was buying it. I was at the grocery store when Mrs. Patterson from down the road approached me. Caitlin, honey, I just want you to know, some of us remember what your grandmother was really like. What do you mean? She helped my family when my husband lost his job. Paid our mortgage for 3 months, never asked for anything back. Mrs. Patterson squeezed my arm. She was a good judge of character. If she left everything to you, she had her reasons. That night, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No postmark, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message cut from magazine letters. We know what really happened with Daryl. Stop the shelter project, or everyone else will know too. I stared at the paper for a long time, then walked to my kitchen and held it over the gas stove until it caught fire. I watched it burn in the sink, the edges curling black. They thought they could scare me back into silence. They had no idea what silence had taught me. The second envelope arrived 3 days later, this one shoved through my mail slot while I was at the construction site. Inside were photocopies of police reports and hospital records I'd hoped never to see again. My own handwriting stared back at me from a domestic violence report filed 2 years ago. Defendant struck me repeatedly in the ribs and face. I fear for my safety. Below it, the withdrawal form I'd signed a week later. I wished to drop all charges. This was a misunderstanding. A sticky note was attached in Teresa's handwriting. Remember this? Remember what the family said when you tried to embarrass us? Drop the shelter project or these go public. I was still staring at the papers when my phone rang. Kate? It's Zoe. Are you okay? Teresa's been calling everyone saying you're having some kind of breakdown. What's she saying exactly? That you're spending money recklessly, that you're not thinking clearly. She's got Aunt Malia convinced you need an intervention. I walked to my window and looked out at the construction crew working on the warehouse. They'd stripped the interior down to the studs, and the place was starting to look like it could actually house people instead of old machinery. Zoe, do you remember when I filed charges against Daryl? Silence on the other end. You do remember. Kate, that was a long time ago. 2 years. And do you remember what happened at the family meeting? I wasn't there. But you heard about it. Another pause. I heard Teresa thought you should handle it privately. Teresa said I was making the family look bad. She said if I really wanted to leave Daryl, I should do it quietly, without involving the police. I traced patterns on the dusty window. She said filing charges made it look like we couldn't handle our own problems. Kate and Malia agreed with her. Said it would hurt everyone's reputation if it got in the papers. They were trying to protect you. Were they? Or were they protecting themselves? Zoe didn't answer. I dropped the charges because my own family convinced me I was wrong to file them. And then when I finally left him for good, Teresa told everyone at Thanksgiving that I deserved what I got. She was angry. People say things. She filmed me moving into this trailer and posted it online to humiliate me. She's been telling people I'm mentally unstable, and now she's threatening to release my private medical records if I don't stop building a shelter for women like me. The line went quiet for a long moment. She has your medical records? Hospital reports from when Daryl put me there. Police reports from when I tried to get help. All the things they convinced me to keep quiet about. Jesus, Kate. I didn't know she had those. Well, now you do. So tell me again how they're trying to protect me. After I hung up, I drove to the cemetery. Grandma's grave looked peaceful in the afternoon sun, surrounded by flowers that someone had been maintaining. Probably the same person who'd been taking care of the trailer all these years. I sat down and pulled out the police reports. They want me to be ashamed of this, I said to the headstone. They want me to hide it like I hid everything else. A car pulled up behind me. Wayne got out carrying a manila envelope. Caitlin, I got your message. You said it was urgent. I handed him the police reports. Teresa's threatening to release these if I don't stop the shelter project. Wayne read through them quickly, his jaw tightening. These are sealed records. How did she get them? I don't know. Does it matter? It matters because obtaining sealed court records without authorization is a felony. He folded the papers carefully. She's committed a crime to threaten you. Can you prove it? I can try. But Caitlin, there's something else. He opened his envelope. This arrived at my office this morning. It's addressed to you, but it's in your grandmother's handwriting. I took the letter with shaking hands. The envelope was thick, expensive paper, and my name was written in Grandma's careful script. She left instructions for this to be delivered if anyone in the family tried to use your past against you. I opened it and read, My dearest Caitlin, if you're reading this, it means they've shown their true colors. I hoped I was wrong about them, but I suspected I wasn't. The police reports, the hospital visits, the shame they made you carry. None of that was your fault. You were trying to survive, and they made you feel guilty for asking for help. If they ever betray you again, remember that you are the bloodline's spine. You're the one who stayed strong when everything fell apart. You're the one who kept going when they told you to give up. Don't let them make you small again. All my love, Grandma. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. Wayne, I want you to accelerate the shelter timeline, whatever it costs. Are you sure? Teresa's not going to stop. I'm counting on it. I stood up and brushed grass off my jeans. She thinks shame is still my weakness. And is it? I looked back at Grandma's headstone, then at Wayne. Not anymore. The press conference was scheduled for Tuesday morning at City Hall. I'd worked with the mayor's office for 2 weeks to coordinate everything: permits, media notifications, security. The announcement would be simple. The city's largest women's shelter was opening in 6 weeks, fully funded by an anonymous donor. I sat in my Honda across the street, watching reporters set up their cameras. My phone buzzed with a text from Wayne. You sure you don't want to take credit publicly? I typed back, Not yet. Mayor Davidson stepped up to the podium at exactly 10 a.m. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce a groundbreaking initiative for our community. Thanks to the extraordinary generosity of a local philanthropist, we will be opening Haven House, a 40-bed facility for women and children escaping domestic violence. A reporter raised her hand. Can you tell us who the donor is? The donor has chosen to remain anonymous at this time. What I can tell you is that this represents a $1.2 million investment in our community's most vulnerable residents. My phone started ringing immediately. Teresa. Kate, are you watching the news? I'm busy. This is you, isn't it? The anonymous donor? I didn't answer. Kate, this is insane. You can't just throw away over $1 million on strangers. They're not strangers. They're women who need help. You need help. You're having some kind of breakdown spending money like this. The family is worried about you. Which family? The one that threatened to release my medical records? Silence. Yeah, I know about that, Teresa. Wayne told me obtaining sealed court records is a felony. I don't know what you're talking about. The police reports, Teresa? The hospital records? The ones you've been waving around to try to blackmail me? I would never. I hung up. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Malia called 6 times. Ruby posted an Instagram story with crying emojis and the caption, "When your aunt loses her mind and wastes the family fortune." Distant cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to check in. But there were other calls too. Mrs. Patterson from down the road called to say she was proud of me. 3 women from my old church left voicemails offering to volunteer at the shelter. A reporter from the county newspaper wanted to interview anyone connected to this generous donation. That evening I drove to the construction site. The workers had left for the day, but the building was transformed. New windows, fresh drywall, modern electrical systems. In 6 weeks, it would house 40 women and their children. I was standing in what would be the main common area when I heard footsteps behind me. Impressive. I turned to see Zoe walking through the construction debris, carefully avoiding the sawhorses. How did you know I was here? Lucky guess. She looked around at the renovation work. So this is where Grandma's money went. Some of it. Teresa's losing her mind. She spent 3 hours on the phone with Malia today, trying to figure out how to stop you. And what did they decide? That you're having a mental breakdown and they need to intervene for your own good. I laughed. Of course they did. Zoe picked up a paint sample from a nearby table. Soft yellow. Good choice for a common room. The architect said it's calming. You really thought this through, didn't you? I had help. Grandma left very detailed notes about what she wanted her money used for. Zoe looked surprised. She planned this? She planned everything. The trust, the timing, even contingencies for if the family tried to interfere. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of Grandma's handwritten notes. She knew exactly who they were. And who are they? People who think love comes with conditions. People who think helping others is wasteful unless it benefits them directly. Zoe was quiet for a moment, studying the construction around us. You know they're going to fight this, right? Teresa's already talking about having you declared mentally incompetent. Let her try. Wayne has documentation of every decision I've made, every contractor I've hired, every permit I've filed. I'm not the broken woman who dropped those charges 2 years ago. What changed? I thought about Grandma's letter, about the nights I'd spent in this trailer planning and researching and building something bigger than my own pain. I stopped being afraid of what they thought about me. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about the shelter. This is exactly what this town needs. Thank you. A grateful mother. Then another. My sister escaped an abusive marriage last year. Wish this had existed then. Bless you. And another. Anonymous donor, you're a hero. I showed the messages to Zoe. Looks like not everyone thinks you're crazy. No, just the people who never wanted me to heal in the first place. As we walked back to our cars, Zoe stopped and turned to me. Kate, for what it's worth, I think Grandma would be proud. I hope so. I know so. She always said you were stronger than you knew. That night, I sat at my tiny kitchen table and wrote out envelopes. Inside each one, I placed a copy of the trust documents and a simple note. This is what Grandma really thought of me. I addressed them to Teresa, Malia, and every family member who'd called to express their concern about my mental state. Tomorrow, they'd all know exactly where they stood. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m. I'd been debating whether to attend for weeks. Showing up meant revealing myself as the anonymous donor, but staying away felt like hiding. Wayne called Thursday morning with an update. The envelopes were delivered. Teresa called my office screaming about harassment. What did you tell her? That sending someone copies of legal documents they're already entitled to see isn't harassment. But Caitlin, she's planning something. My secretary overheard her on the phone talking about exposing the truth at tomorrow's ceremony. Let her come. Are you sure? She's been telling people you're mentally unstable. If she makes a scene... Wayne, I've been hiding from these people my whole life. I'm done hiding. That afternoon, I drove to the mall and did something I hadn't done in years. I bought myself something beautiful. A red dress, nothing flashy, just well-made and elegant. Red heels to match. When I looked in the dressing room mirror, I saw someone I'd forgotten existed. The woman looking back at me wasn't broken. She wasn't ashamed. She was ready. Friday morning, my phone rang at 7 a.m. Teresa. Kate, we need to talk. I'm busy getting ready for the ribbon cutting. You're really going to show up? In public? It's my shelter, Teresa. Of course I'm showing up. Listen to me. I know you think you're doing something noble here, but people are talking. They're saying you've lost your mind, that you're throwing away money because you can't handle having it. And what are you saying? I'm saying we can fix this, quietly, before you embarrass yourself any further. I sat down on my bed, holding the red dress in my lap. How exactly would we fix it? You donate a reasonable amount, maybe $50,000, to a real charity, something established. Then you invest the rest properly, maybe let the family help you manage it. The family that threatened to release my medical records? That was a misunderstanding. We were concerned about you, that's all. Concerned enough to commit a felony? Kate, please. Think about what you're doing. You're about to stand up in front of the whole town and announce that you spent over $1 million on a shelter.
People are going to think you've lost it. Or they're going to think I found something worth fighting for. This isn't you. The Kate I know would never... The Kate you know was terrified of making waves. She was so afraid of disappointing people that she stayed with a man who put her in the hospital twice. I stood up and walked to the mirror. That Kate is gone. If you do this, there's no going back. The family will never forgive you. Good.
I don't want forgiveness from people who think helping abuse victims is a waste of money. Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you. I have those medical records, Kate. The psychiatric evaluations from your divorce. If you want to play this game, I'll show everyone exactly how unstable you really are. I hung up and turned off my phone. At 1:30, Wayne picked me up in his car. He did a double take when I came out of the trailer. You look powerful. I feel powerful. Good. Because there are about 50 people waiting at City Hall, including most of your family. All of them? Teresa, Malia, Ruby, even some cousins I don't recognize. They're standing in a group near the back, whispering. We drove in comfortable silence until Wayne cleared his throat. Caitlin, I need to tell you something. Yesterday, Teresa tried to file a petition claiming you're mentally incompetent to manage your finances. My stomach dropped. And? The judge threw it out. She had no medical evidence, no recent psychiatric evaluations, nothing but gossip and family drama, but she's not giving up. What's she planning? I don't know. But whatever it is, she's planning to do it publicly. We pulled up to City Hall. I could see the crowd gathered on the front steps, reporters with cameras, city officials in suits. And there, clustered near the back like Wayne said, was my family. Teresa wore black like she was attending a funeral. Malia clutched her purse like a shield. Ruby held her phone up, already recording. "You ready for this?" Wayne asked. I looked at them through the car window. These people who'd spent months trying to break me down, trying to make me small again, trying to convince everyone I was too damaged to deserve what Grandma left me. "I buried every piece of who I was in that trailer," I said, opening the car door. "What came out isn't afraid of them anymore." Wayne smiled. "Then let's go show them what Grandma's money really built." I stepped out of the car in my red heels and walked toward the crowd. Cameras flashed, people turned to stare, and somewhere behind me, I heard Teresa's voice rise above the murmur of the crowd. "That's her. That's the woman who's been lying to all of you." I kept walking, my heels clicking against the concrete steps, steady as a heartbeat. Mayor Davidson was at the podium, thanking various city officials, when I reached the front of the crowd. He spotted me and smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the person who made Haven House possible. Please welcome Caitlin." The applause was warm, genuine. I walked up the steps to the podium, my red heels steady on the concrete. Behind me, I could hear Teresa's voice getting louder. "This is exactly what I was talking about. She's having a breakdown and nobody wants to admit it." I reached the microphone and looked out at the crowd. Reporters held their cameras up. City officials smiled encouragingly. And there in the back, my family stood like a dark cloud, Teresa's face twisted with rage. "Thank you, Mayor Davidson." I adjusted the microphone. 6 weeks ago, I was living in my grandmother's trailer, and my family thought that was the most embarrassing thing I could do. A few people in the crowd chuckled. Teresa stepped forward. They were wrong. The most embarrassing thing I could do was stay silent while women and children in our community had nowhere safe to go. "She's mentally ill," Teresa's voice cut through the crowd. "She's been diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety. She's not competent to make these kinds of decisions." The crowd turned to look at her. Cameras swiveled. I gripped the podium and kept talking. "My grandmother left me a trust fund worth $2.9 million. She could have split it among all her grandchildren. She could have left it to charity. Instead, she left it all to me. Because she was senile." Teresa pushed through the crowd, Malia right behind her. She was confused at the end. This woman manipulated a dying old woman. Mayor Davidson stepped toward the microphone, but I held up my hand. "She left it to me because she knew I would use it for something that mattered. Something like this shelter, which will house 40 women and children who are escaping domestic violence." "You want to know about domestic violence?" Teresa was almost at the front now, her phone in her hand. "Let me tell you what she's not telling you." The crowd went quiet. Reporters leaned forward. 2 years ago, she filed false police reports against her husband. She lied about being abused to try to get money in her divorce. My hands shook on the podium. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading for 2 years. Then she dropped the charges because she knew she was lying. She's been playing victim ever since, and now she's using a dead woman's money to fund her delusions. The microphone squealed with feedback as I leaned closer to it. When the sound cleared, my voice was steady. "Teresa's right about one thing. I did drop the charges against my husband." The crowd was dead silent. "I dropped them because my family, including Teresa, convinced me that filing them made our family look bad. They told me I should handle it privately. They told me I was embarrassing everyone." I pulled out a folded paper from my purse. "This is a copy of the trust documents my grandmother left." She wrote a note on the back. I held it up so the cameras could see Grandma's handwriting. It says, "For the granddaughter who stayed strong when everyone told her to stay quiet. Use this to help other women find their voices." Teresa's face went white. My grandmother knew about the abuse. She knew about the charges I dropped. She knew about the family meeting where I was told to keep quiet for everyone else's sake. I looked directly at Teresa. She also knew who convinced me to stay silent. That's not, Teresa started. She left me this money specifically because she knew I would use it to help women who are where I was 2 years ago. Women who are being told to stay quiet, to handle it privately, to think about how their pain might embarrass other people. I folded the paper and put it back in my purse. Haven House opens in 2 weeks. It will provide safe housing, counseling, legal aid, and job training for women and children escaping abusive situations. It exists because my grandmother believed that helping people heal is never a waste of money. The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. I stepped back from the microphone. Teresa stood frozen in the crowd, her phone still in her hand, her mouth open. Malia had tears streaming down her face, but not the kind she usually faked. These looked real. A reporter pushed forward. Ms. Caitlin, can you comment on your family's allegations about your mental health? I looked at Teresa one more time. I spent 2 years believing I was too broken to deserve help. It turns out I was just surrounded by people who benefited from keeping me broken. I walked down the steps, past my family, past the reporters, past everyone. Wayne fell into step beside me. That was incredible, he said quietly. That was necessary. Behind us, I could hear Teresa trying to salvage the situation, her voice shrill and desperate. But the reporters weren't listening to her anymore. They were following me. My phone, which I'd turned back on, was already buzzing with notifications. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to check them. I'd said everything I needed to say. The letter was waiting on my kitchen table when I got home from the ribbon cutting. Plain white envelope, my name written in careful block letters. I opened it and found a single sheet of paper with a message I'd been expecting. You won, but winning cost you your family. Was it worth it? Someone who cares. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash, then pulled it back out and smoothed it flat. On the back, I wrote, yes, it was worth everything. I folded it carefully and put it in the wooden box where I kept Grandma's letters. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since the press conference. Reporters, volunteers wanting to help at the shelter, and surprisingly, 3 women asking about residency applications. Haven House wasn't even officially open yet, but word was spreading. There was also a voicemail from Ruby that I almost deleted without listening to. Aunt Kate? It's Ruby. I saw the news. I wanted to say I'm sorry about the TikTok video and the Instagram posts. I didn't know about what really happened with your ex-husband. Mom never told me the whole story. Her voice got quieter. I've been thinking about what you said, about people who benefit from keeping others broken. I think maybe I need to think about some things differently. The message ended with, maybe we could talk sometime, if you want to. I saved the voicemail. Wayne called that evening with updates. The newspaper wants to do a feature story about the shelter, and the county is asking if you'd consider consulting on a second location. What about Teresa's petition? Withdrawn. Her lawyer advised her that pursuing it would open her up to defamation charges, especially after today's performance. And the medical records? She's agreed to return them and sign a statement that she obtained them illegally. In exchange, you won't press charges. I walked to my window and looked out at the trailer park. Mrs. Patterson was watering her flowers, and she waved when she saw me. Wayne, I want to do something else with the remaining money. What did you have in mind? I want to set up a legal fund for women who need help with divorce proceedings, restraining orders, custody battles, all the things I couldn't afford when I needed them. That's a beautiful idea, Caitlin. And I want to donate this trailer to Haven House. They can use it for transitional housing. Are you sure? Where will you live? I'd been thinking about that all week. I'm going to buy a house, a real house. Nothing fancy, just something that's mine. The next morning, I drove to the cemetery one last time before the movers came. Grandma's grave was covered in fresh flowers, Roses, lilies, daisies. A small card was tucked among them. Thank you for raising a granddaughter who fights for people like me. A grateful survivor. I sat down next to the headstone and pulled out the letter I'd written the night before. Dear Grandma, I read aloud. I did what you asked me to do. I used your gift to help people and I didn't let them make me small again. It cost me the family, but I think you knew it would. I think that was part of the plan too. A car pulled up behind me. I turned to see Zoe getting out, carrying a small bouquet. I thought I might find you here. She sat down beside me and placed her flowers next to the others. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. You? Confused mostly. Teresa's been calling everyone, trying to explain what happened yesterday. She's saying you manipulated the whole situation. And what are you saying? Zoe was quiet for a moment. I'm saying maybe it's time I stopped letting other people tell me what to think. She pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. I'm starting a support group for family members of abuse survivors. Want to help me plan it? You sent that to Teresa? I sent it to everyone. Teresa, Malia, all the cousins who've been gossiping about you. I told them if they really want to help, they can start by learning what help actually looks like. And what did they say? Teresa blocked me. Malia said she'd think about it. A few of the cousins said yes. We sat in comfortable silence, watching clouds move across the sky. Zoe, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I'm like her, like Grandma? Zoe smiled. You're exactly like her. She never backed down from a fight that mattered either. That afternoon, I packed the last of my belongings into boxes. The trailer looked smaller, empty, but somehow more peaceful. I was loading the final box into my car when a news van pulled up. A reporter got out, followed by a camera operator. Ms. Caitlin? I'm Sarah from Channel 7. We're doing a follow-up story about Haven House. Could we get a quick interview? What do you want to know? People are calling you a hero. How does that feel? I looked back at the trailer, then at the reporter. Heroes are people who run into burning buildings or save lives. I just stopped being afraid of people who never wanted me to heal. And your family? Any regrets about how things ended? I thought about Teresa's face at the press conference, about Ruby's voicemail, about Zoe sitting beside me at the cemetery. Some bridges are worth burning. Some families are worth losing. And some silences are worth breaking, no matter what it costs. I got in my car and drove away, leaving the trailer and everything it represented behind. Revenge doesn't roar. It waits, and it builds, and when it finally speaks, it changes everything.